Welcome to the fantasy audiobook, Batman's Owl Godfather. Chapter 1. Gotham, late at night, alley. Gunshots rang out and pearl necklaces were scattered all over the floor. Shadows were like curtains covering the two cold corpses, and a child sat down numbly. The sound of police sirens is approaching in the distance. When I was little, I was afraid of bats. But adults told me that bats are more afraid of me. Master Wayne. In the stately Wayne Manor, the old butler Alfred walked steadily, and the tea on the tray in his hand exuded warm heat. He gently placed this concern in front of Bruce Wayne. At this moment, Bruce has not yet put on the legendary bat cape. He is only an 8-year-old boy. A child who had just lost his parents in the torrent of fate. Bruce's eyes seemed as if his soul had been taken away, empty and lifeless. He stared straight out of the window, and the city called Gotham turned into a blurry silhouette in his eyes. His thoughts seemed to be wandering to the distant shore, and he turned a deaf ear to Alfred's call. Alfred was silent and turned to leave, wanting to leave Bruce a quiet space of his own. However, just as he was about to leave the room, Bruce suddenly stopped him. "Alfred, what's the matter, Master Bruce?" Alfred turned back, his tone calm and concerned. "It's all my fault." Bruce's voice trembled and tears welled up in his eyes. "I asked them to leave the theater early. If I weren't afraid." "No, no, no," Alfred interrupted hastily, his hand gently stroking Bruce's hair, his movements gentle but firm. "You did nothing wrong, Bruce. The criminal is the culprit of all this. He caused this tragedy and has nothing to do with you. Do you understand? But my father is obviously a good man. Can't good people be rewarded in Gotham? Because the city is sick." Alfred's eyes turned to the window, where was the outline of Gotham City, a city struggling in the night. "It's so sick." Bruce couldn't accept the answer. "Why is this happening?" Alfred tried to maintain a calm expression. He knew that for an 8-year-old child, the intricate entanglements of interests behind Gotham City were too obscure and difficult to understand. Therefore, he chose a language that was more acceptable to children to respond to Bruce's questions. "Because of the curse." Alfred's voice was low and strong. Bruce raised his head suddenly, shock and doubt written on his face. "Curse," he repeated the word as if trying to understand the meaning behind it. "Yes, a curse from the devil." Alfred continued to explain. "It cursed Gotham, causing the people here to fall into endless cannibalism. In this city, crime is rampant, but justice often has no place. There are gold belts for killing people and setting fires, but there are no corpses for mending bridges and roads. This is Gotham. The so-called devil is the uncontrollable greed of Gotham people." Alfred thought so. As an elder who watched Bruce grow up, Alfred's biggest wish was that he could stay away from all this sin and strife. It would be better to become a carefree rich man. If he could completely leave Gotham, a place of right and wrong, that would be even better. However, contrary to expectations, Alfred's words did not achieve the expected effect. Instead, he inspired something deep within Bruce. 2 years later, the huge library at Wayne Manor. The walls are lined with towering bookshelves, each floor filled with dusty scrolls and heavy tomes. Bruce, who was already 10 years old, was immersed in an ancient book, surrounded by various open books. That's it, Bruce muttered to himself. After 2 years of searching, he was finally convinced that Alfred had not lied to him. The book in his hand records the history of Gotham City and the Wayne family. The above tells a thrilling past event. The book records that Thomas Jefferson, the ancestor of the Wayne family and the founding father, made a shocking decision in the smoke of the Revolutionary War. He summoned a demon named Barbados. The demon was so powerful that it helped the young nation win the victory of freedom. However, the price of victory is heavy. In order to prevent this demon from coming back to the world, Jefferson had to seal it underground in Gotham City in exchange for the peace of the country. Bruce's fingers gently slid across the pages, his heartbeat quickened, and every breath he took was accompanied by the weight of history. He finally believed that the darkness in Gotham City was not without reason, but had far-reaching roots. Every corner and every street in this city may hide the shadow of that sealed history. My parents died because of those demons. Little Bruce stood up suddenly, his young face full of determination. He will correct the mistakes left by his predecessors, and he will completely destroy the demons that polluted Gotham. 2 years have not erased the hatred in his heart. 10-year-old Bruce still has the passion and recklessness of a teenager. He did not consider the consequences of failure. In order to avenge his dead parents, he will fight the devil directly. Even if the price is to die together. Little Bruce, holding a flashlight, followed the records in the ancient books and found a huge hole under Gotham City. As soon as he entered, a large group of bats flew out like a black cloud. Bruce trembled all over, not daring to look directly at the creature he feared the most. When the bats dispersed, Bruce saw the whole picture of the hole. It was indeed as recorded in the book, a huge stone sculpture of an owl, deeply engraved on the stone wall. Bruce took out the knife in his arms and began to chant the spell to remove the seal in a low voice according to the ancient ritual. As the spell echoed, the air around seemed to be given life, and a gloomy atmosphere quietly spread. If you want to destroy the devil, you must release the devil first. Bruce has been prepared. In his arms, he has a revolver of his father, and he will let the devil taste the wisdom and courage of human beings as soon as he shows up. The ceremony was coming to an end, and Bruce began the final step. He cut his palm and smeared the blood on the stone statue. Then, a dark mist surged out of the stone statue, getting more and more intense. Bruce held the revolver tightly, his heartbeat accelerated, and he was ready for the upcoming life and death duel. A wild laugh came from the black mist, and the seal of the devil was completely lifted. Bruce completely threw away his fear at this time. His little face was ready to die, and justice in his hands was about to be launched. Then, he heard the first words the devil said when he came to the world again. "Little human, you have awakened the greatest demon king in history, and I will give you unimaginable wealth. Wait, you are Bruce Wayne." Bruce watched as the black fog cleared and the demon revealed his true form. The expression on his face became astonished. He didn't expect it at all. The so-called devil turned out to be so ordinary. An owl flapped its wings and landed on the stone statue. Its body is well proportioned, its feathers are gray-brown, its ear feathers stand upright, its eyes are large and round, and there is no trace of any demonic demeanor. At this time, the owl was staring at Bruce, its head turned 180 degrees downward, and its posture looked a bit mocking. "Why don't you speak? Are you mute?" Hearing the owl speak human words again, Bruce realized that it did have something special about it. "Who are you?" He remembered what the owl said just now. "How do you know my name? Why are you so nervous? Put your pistol away. It means nothing to me." The owl twisted its neck back and looked up at the sky, as if reminiscing about the past. "You can call me Kadam. This is my name in the 600th world. As for how I know you, from the moment you woke me up, I naturally knew all your information." Kadam shook his head in a joking tone. "For example, I also know that you are only 10 years old now and will have your 11th birthday next week. You have just become an orphan, and you haven't gotten over the shadow of your parents' death yet, but don't worry, you won't be able to get out of it in the future either." The talk of his parents stung young Bruce, who became agitated and angry. "Don't mention my parents. What are you talking about? I am a devil, and opening other people's wounds is my favorite thing." Kadam flapped his wings a few times and smoothed the feathers under his wings. "But since you woke me up, in exchange, I can help you realize a wish, anything. Just make your wish." Little Bruce refused without hesitation. "I can't make a deal with the devil." "Don't be so resistant. Do you want to hear what I can do first?" Kadam suggested. "For example, resurrect your parents." As soon as these words came out, Bruce's heart beat violently. He didn't care about Kadam's harsh words, and his mind was full of thoughts about what he just said. Resurrecting his dead parents. Little Bruce almost immediately wanted to nod in agreement. But out of his natural caution, he still asked one more question. "How do you want to be resurrected?" "A matter of necromancy," Kadam said casually. "If I cast a spell now, your parents will crawl out of their graves in the next second." Bruce's eyes suddenly widened. Straight out of the grave. It's been 2 years since his parents died. Does the person who crawled out still look like a human being? No. Bruce immediately rejected Kadam's proposal. "Isn't this okay?" Kadam thought for a while, and then gave a new suggestion. "How about I help you reduce the crime rate in Gotham City to 0? It has to be said that the proposals given by Kadam are indeed what Bruce desires most. But Bruce still asked one more question. "What are you going to do?" "This is simple." Kadam gave the answer, as long as all the people in Gotham are dead, there will be no crime. No, this time, little Bruce almost screamed and rejected Kadam's proposal. Kadam was a little regretful. It's a pity that you missed the opportunity to solve Gotham's problems from the root. This isn't solving Gotham's problems, this is solving Gotham. Bruce yelled in his heart. The evil and distortion shown by Kadam had completely frightened him. It won't work this way, that won't work either, you are really difficult to take care of. The owl said fiercely, it's rare to be free again. I want to enjoy this beautiful world. Make a wish quickly and I will make it come true for you. This sentence suddenly awakened Bruce. He suddenly realized that the demon he had released could destroy the entire world. His ancestors sealed it for this reason. But now I have released the devil. Bruce finally discovered how much trouble he had gotten into, and once Kadam was allowed to leave, the consequences would be disastrous. No, you must make up for the mistakes you made. Fortunately, it seems that because of a certain contract, Kadam must fulfill one of his wishes before he can be truly free. Bruce's 10-year-old mind began to work wildly. He's going to seize this opportunity and come up with an unassailable wish to not only keep Kadam within safe limits, but also use his power to help Gotham. Finally, he thought about it. I want to change Gotham, my own way. Bruce said in one breath, before you complete your goal, you have to become my assistant and provide me with the help I need. What a clever little guy. The owl sneered, he actually added so many restrictions and reserved your right to deny me at any time. Bruce clenched the revolver in his hand, but this is my wish. Kadam was silent for a moment. The atmosphere became extremely oppressive in the silence, and Bruce could almost hear his own heartbeat. Finally, Kadam nodded. Okay, I agree, I can stay with you until you complete your goal, but... The owl suddenly spread its wings, and a gust of wind hit him. Bruce had to close his eyes. Not as your assistant, but as your godfather. Devil Godfather. This is my last concession. If you can't agree, it means you have given up your right to make a wish. I can only say I don't object. Little Bruce covered his eyes with his hands and compromised. He didn't care about this ethical advantage. After all, it was the owl who claimed it. He just didn't admit it in his heart. This is a sacrifice for Gotham. The wind gradually stopped. Kadam stood quietly on the stone statue, his wings folded, his eyes deep. The contract has been made. From today, I will help you become stronger until you change Gotham. Now, you can go back. Bruce was a little shocked. He didn't expect the matter to be resolved so quickly. What about you? When you get home, you will naturally find that I am everywhere. Bruce was reluctant to leave. He was still full of doubts about this demon. Kadam said calmly, if I want to leave, you can't keep me at all. Since we have to cooperate for many years, you should give me enough respect, such as trust. Quote. These words convinced Bruce, and he finally left. The huge hole slowly became quiet. Suddenly, the tense posture of the owl Kadam relaxed instantly. He let out a long breath. This kid is really hard to fool, fortunately he is only 10 years old now. At this moment, Kadam did not look like the Devil King who controlled everything and was majestic just now. In fact, Kadam was not a devil at all. He was just an ordinary person who accidentally became an owl and had the ability to travel through different worlds. Except for some scary tricks, he has no special abilities. Even the ability to travel can only be used with Batman. Because his strength has increased, he is bound to Batman himself. Only when Batman becomes stronger can he become stronger. Bruce thought he had tied Kadam to his side, but he didn't know that Kadam didn't want to leave. Thinking back to his performance just now, Kadam was quite satisfied. But the real test has just begun. I must not let Batman find out that I am a fake. Quote. To be honest, Kadam is panicking now. Maybe it's because he was a civil engineer in his previous life, so he got the name Kadam in this life. It sounds powerful, but he's just an owl. And Kadam himself can be described by 3 keywords: playing badly, following his heart, and an abstract lover. But he was forcibly tied to Bruce Wayne, a superhero known for his paranoia, suspicion, and loneliness. In this situation, Kadam's mood was as complicated as Batman's parents died. The rule of binding is that every time Batman's strength improves, he can get 10 times the reward. If it's tied to other superheroes, that's great. Their superpowers grow naturally, and Kadam can just lie down and get the rewards. But it's Batman. This guy is good at playing with money, and Kadam can't get any. Then can we discuss with Batman and make progress together? It's impossible. Given Batman's suspicious personality and almost pathological desire for control, working with him can only be done according to his rules. This is what Kadam doesn't want to see. His best choice now is to scare Bruce while he is still young and take control of the initiative. Otherwise, the menu will be served before he gets to the table. Little Bruce was still in shock and returned to Wayne Manor. Alfred quickly came up and asked with concern, "Master Wayne, where have you been?" I haven't gone anywhere." Bruce wanted to lie, but Alfred directly exposed him. "You went to that alley again, right? It's very dangerous there, not a place for a child to go." The butler misunderstood Bruce's concealment, and Bruce also wanted Alfred to make the best of a mistake. So he changed the subject and asked, "How did you find out?" "Because you can't lie at all." Alfred squatted down and gently patted the dust off Bruce's body. His movements were gentle and delicate, as if he was soothing a wounded heart. Bruce stepped back, his heartbeat accelerated, afraid that Alfred would touch the pistol in his arms. The butler continued, "Master Wayne, lying is also a skill. You have never received any training in this area. How could you hide it from me? Lying also needs to be learned." Little Bruce thought. Then he asked tentatively, "Have all the liars in this city learned to lie?" Alfred nodded and said, "Of course, Gotham will teach them how to lie." These words gave Bruce an unprecedented sense of crisis. Just now, he was still in front of the demon Kadam, brazenly saying that he would change Gotham. But now he found that the criminals in Gotham were all learning, but he was doing nothing now. He was already behind schedule. No, at this time, Bruce had the idea that he should have. He wanted to go out to study and learn how to fight criminals. But this must be considered in the long run. After Bruce repeatedly assured Alfred that he would not go to commemorate his parents alone again, he returned to his room. As soon as he opened the door, there was a mocking laugh. "You can't even lie, huh?" The owl Kadam had come to Wayne Manor without knowing when. He stood on a high-backed chair, and his laughter was sharp and piercing. "Be quiet," Bruce scolded, "Alfred will hear it." Kadam did not stop his mockery. "No, he can't hear it. It was you who signed the contract with me. Only you can understand what I say. Even if it's just the cry of an owl, it's annoying." Bruce put on his slippers and turned over to his bed. He said nothing, thinking about his own thoughts silently. This habit will be kept forever if nothing unexpected happens. Especially after becoming Batman, Bruce's mind hall will no longer allow others to break in. But now an owl has come in. "You feel anxious, right?" Kadam saw through Bruce's thoughts and pointed it out. "You know what you want to do is difficult, but now your power is too weak. Changing Gotham seems to be just an unattainable dream." Bruce retorted, "I will become stronger, and I have enough wealth to make me stronger." "But so what? Even if you become stronger, there will be stronger enemies, endlessly." Kadam finished speaking and opened his wings again. This time, something strange happened. The walls of Bruce's room became bizarre and the space extended infinitely, as if the vast universe was unfolding in the room. Bruce sat on the bed, but seemed to be drifting in the Milky Way. He saw small worlds flying in front of him, endlessly. Bruce was stunned. "This is the universe of the universes." Kadam flew to Bruce's side. "Tell me, in these universes, how much influence can your wealth and power have?" Bruce couldn't answer this question, he was completely dazzled. Kadam saw that his goal had been achieved, and immediately retracted the scene in front of him, and the room returned to its original appearance. What he just showed was his only extraordinary ability. As long as he was with Bruce, he could open the passage to the universe of the universes. "You may have noticed that Gotham is a very special place that will continue to attract criminals," Kadam said in Bruce's ear, who was at a loss. His voice was like a devil bewitching people. "But I tell you now that Gotham will not only attract criminals from your world, but also criminals from other worlds. It is the intersection of all evil. How much wealth and power do you need to change this city? Gotham is a paradise for criminals. A Batman can never change it, he can only torture each other. Two people hurt each other and can't move. If Bruce follows the original trajectory, nothing will change. Now Kadam shows Bruce a brand new road. This is the second time Bruce has heard the concept of world from Kadam. The last time was when Kadam introduced himself and mentioned the 600th world. Besides my world, are there other worlds? Those criminals will come to Gotham. Bruce's voice trembled. He was just a 10-year-old child and couldn't accept this subversion of the worldview at all. Moreover, a huge sense of powerlessness grew in his heart. If the enemies are endless, then won't the evil never disappear from Gotham? Gotham has successfully scared Bruce, and now it's time to give him a shot of cardiotonic. He doesn't want Batman's mentality to really collapse. So what? Gotham said, it's not like there is no way to solve it. What solution? This time, Bruce almost blurted out and asked Gotham for help. Gotham's answer was also very simple. Travel with me to the world and get the power to deny the world from outside the world. Bruce found that Kadam's proposal coincided with his previous idea. He wanted to travel around the world. Kadam just expanded the scope. But can he really believe the advice of a demon? Bruce decided to go all out and stop thinking about it. On the one hand, he was indeed frightened by the picture shown by Kadam. On the other hand, as the owl said, as the Demon King, it was easy for him to kill himself, and there was no need to do these tricks. The other party was indeed fulfilling the contract. In fact, this was the benefit of Kadam's pretense in the early stage to let Bruce have a preconceived idea. No one would think that the Demon King had time to play with a child. But now there is still a problem. Alfred will not agree. Bruce thought of his competent butler, who was now his guardian in a sense. If you're worried about that, we can just not go. Kadam was straightforward. Anyway, my lifespan is unlimited, so it's no big deal to waste a few decades on you. No, Bruce immediately weighed the pros and cons. If he continued to hesitate, he would be the one who suffered. He thought for a moment and made a decision. I can leave secretly without telling Alfred. Bruce clenched his fist and said, but I will leave him a letter and tell him not to worry. This idea is indeed a bit naive. Alfred will never worry less just because Bruce left a letter. He will definitely look for Bruce all over the world. Speaking of sending letters, I remember it. Kadam said at this time, I can set a time and space anchor point here so that you can write to your family every day. Is it okay? Bruce's eyes lit up. I can tell Alfu about my real experience in the letter. Kadam shrugged. Whatever you want, I don't care. After solving the biggest problem, Bruce immediately slid off the bed, put on his slippers, and ran to the desk. He tore a page from the notebook, picked up the pen and wrote the letter stroke by stroke. Kadam landed on top of his head. 10-year-old Bruce had no literary talent, but he explained the matter very clearly. The gist of the whole letter was, Goodbye Alfu, I'm going to sail tonight, don't worry about me, I have the paddle of courage and wisdom. Kadam reminded above his head, Write your owl Godfather too. Bruce rolled his eyes, then started a new line and wrote about Kadam. It only said that he met a magical owl, and didn't mention any Godfather. Kadam didn't bother about such details. When the letter was finished, Kadam shook his body, and a feather fell down. Drop a drop of blood on it, just like when you woke me up. Bruce squeezed the scar on the palm of his hand and dropped a drop of blood on the feather. The blood quickly penetrated, merged with the feather, and disappeared. Very good. The anchor point is also completed. You leave a message to your butler. This is the medium for your future communication. Bruce did so. When the signature was finally completed, it also marked the beginning of the journey. Bruce changed into his favorite clothes, and when he wanted to pack some luggage, he was stopped by Kadam. There is no need to be so troublesome, the necessary things will naturally be there. Kadam fell on Bruce's shoulder. Are you ready? Let's go. At this time, Bruce remembered that he had not yet explained what to do with the shares of Wayne Group. Wait a minute, too late. An illusory cave opened under Bruce's feet, and he fell weightlessly. No matter what else happens, trust your butler. After saying this, Kadam also plunged into the cave. As the cave closed, the man and the bird completely disappeared from this world. The day they return will be a long, long time later. The time and space tunnel of the heavens, the interweaving of light and shadow, unpredictable, like a flowing abstract painting. Bruce was suspended in the air, as if lifted by an invisible force. Kadam spread his wings and flew above his head. Suddenly, a series of strange sounds came from behind, like the echo of the wilderness, getting closer and closer, making people feel creepy. Just as Bruce was about to look back, Kadam reminded him, "I suggest you don't look back." "What's that sound?" Bruce really didn't look back, but he couldn't suppress his curiosity. "The guy you wanted to kill, the Lord of the Dark Universe, Barbados." Kadam said calmly, "You are the most important part of his plan. Now that I take you away, he will certainly be eager to catch up." "What do you mean?" Kadam's short sentence contained countless information. Bruce's little head couldn't understand it for a moment. "Nothing. Don't think too much. The space-time tunnel is my home. He can't catch up with me. You sit tight." Suddenly, Kadam spread his wings, grabbed Bruce's shoulders with his claws, and took him to a sudden turn and crashed into a world. And a deafening roar of anger came from behind. When he was about to enter a new world, Bruce caught a glimpse and saw the full picture of the creature behind him. For a moment, his heart seemed to stop. Barbados, the master of the dark universe, appeared in front of Bruce in a form that almost transcended reality. His figure was wrapped in a huge black cloak, and under the cloak seemed to hide a twisted and terrifying human figure. The edge of the cloak extended broad wings, which spread in the void, blocking all light, as if to bring the entire universe under its shadow. Barbados' eyes, covered by the cloak, revealed endless anger and evil thoughts. He stretched out his dry claws, trying to pull Bruce back to his universe. However, it was in vain. When traveling through the tunnels of the heavens, Kadam was invincible, and his journey would not be disturbed by any external force. Barbados could only watch Bruce leave and enter a universe that did not belong to DC. Roar! Barbados was furious, and Bruce seemed to see the silhouette of a city in the darkness of Barbados, cloak in a trance. That was Gotham. Darkness continued to gather towards Gotham. Only then did Bruce understand why Kadam had told him before that Gotham was the intersection of all evil. He suddenly had a strange idea. The death of his parents might not be a simple accident. However, he had no time to think. The huge weightlessness and detachment interrupted Bruce's thoughts. His body and consciousness were involved in a drastic transformation. Bruce felt like he was spinning in a storm. He kept falling and finally entered a completely new world. 1991, London, England. I want to explain to you the rules of traveling through the heavens first. Whenever we go to a new world, the laws of the world will arrange an origin for you based on your situation. This is to facilitate your activities in this world without arousing too much suspicion. You don't have to worry about it, just accept it. Kadam stopped on Bruce's shoulder and explained to him everything that happened in front of him. But Bruce still had a hard time accepting it. "You mean, this arrangement best suits my identity?" "That's right. Yeah." Bruce stood in front of the iron gate of the building and double-checked that he had read it correctly. "This is an orphanage. I'm not an orphan." Bruce protested unbearably. "I have Alfred." "Don't tell me this. It's not my assigned identity. If you feel that your fragile dignity has been hurt, you should protest to the world." Kadam said nonchalantly. He looked at the name of Wu's orphanage, and knew what world he was in now. The world of Harry Potter. Wu's orphanage is also famous in the Harry Potter world, because it has an outstanding resident named Tom Riddle. Kadam glanced at the newspaper on the roadside before. The time now is 1991, the timeline where the original story begins. This means that the current world is relatively peaceful. Even if the world is in chaos, it will take a few more years. Little Bruce grows up in such a world and will not encounter any life danger for the time being. What happened in the Zudian tunnel before was also a lingering fear for Kadam. When he first came into this world, he immediately came to this conclusion. Barbados won't let it go. Kadam maintained his image and reminded Bruce in a nonchalant tone. As the Lord of the Dark Universe, he is bound to the 600th world, but this does not mean that he will give up on you. If my guess is correct, he should choose to release DC characters into your world and capture you. Little Bruce was puzzled at the time. "Why are you arresting me? I don't know him at all." I said, "You are the most important part of his plan. Just know this and don't ask about anything else." The reason why Kadam didn't say anything was because the truth behind it was not something a 10-year-old child could bear. This will subvert Bruce's worldview and severely damage his belief in becoming stronger in the future. In the original comics, Batman's life trajectory was almost always designed by Barbados, the god of bats. including the death of Bruce's parents. Barbados. Purpose is for Batman's body to become a portal that opens the dark multiverse into the original Earth. And Tatum took Bruce away, which was equivalent to storming out of Barbados' house and carrying the door away. How could he give up? The pursuers who will capture Bruce will definitely come. They may be Gotham criminals, super-powered villains, or even Batman himself from the parallel universe. Anyway, the higher the intensity of the world Bruce is in, the stronger the pursuers will be. The Harry Potter world is considered a low-magic universe, and the safety factor is relatively good. Bruce is a man who keeps things to himself. Tatum didn't want to say more, and he didn't have the strength to press, so he simply didn't ask further and just thought he would find out slowly in the future. The most important thing now is to integrate into this new world. Crunch. Bruce pushed open the iron door of the orphanage and walked straight in. Passing through the big iron gate, there is a bare yard. Behind the yard is a square and old building, surrounded by high railings. The Wu orphanage will be demolished next year and an office building will be built on the site. Therefore, there are not many people living in it now, and the whole orphanage has a gloomy and old-fashioned atmosphere. Bruce muttered, "Very good, I have begun to hate this world." Tatum followed him, flew into the orphanage, looked around, and came to the conclusion, it feels a bit like Wayne Manor. Bruce didn't argue with this. To him, the parentsless Wayne Manor was indeed as big a tomb as the orphanage. Bruce walked up the steps leading to the front door. Before he could knock on the door, a middle-aged nun wearing an apron came forward aggressively. "Bruce," she shouted angrily, "where have you run away? I told you someone would come looking for you today. You always have to run around by yourself. Looking for me." Bruce felt baffled. He had just come to this world, how could someone be looking for him? But before he could refute, he was pulled into the front door by his nanny. Bruce turned back and wanted to ask Tatum for help. But he found that the other party had already flown to the mailbox and showed no concern about what happened to him. Bruce was finally pulled away. Tatum really doesn't care what happens. This is the world's own arrangement and is helping Bruce improve his identity. No need to intervene. This arrangement is completely random and sometimes brings some unexpected surprises. Even if it turns out that Bruce is Voldemort's illegitimate son, Tatum will not be surprised. Goo goo. As Bruce was pulled into the building, the surroundings became silent. At this time, an owl slightly smaller than Tatum landed on the mailbox and stood with Tatum. It held a letter in its claws. Tatum took a look and saw the words, "Wood Orphanage, Bruce Wayne," written on it. On the back of the envelope was a wax seal and a shield emblem. The capital H was surrounded by a lion, an eagle, a badger and a snake. The little owl tilted its head, not understanding why there was already an owl standing here. Wasn't the task of delivering the letter assigned to it only? Tatum turned around and looked at the little owl. Both sides were silent, and in the eyes of the two owls, there was only the figure of each other. Suddenly, Tatum flapped his wings and slapped the little owl off the mailbox at lightning speed. "Where is your mother?" Tatum cursed. "What class, standing in the same mailbox with me?" "Mr. Bruce Wayne, right." In the director's office of the orphanage, two men in suits and leather shoes, holding a stack of documents in their hands, kept comparing them with Bruce in front of them. Bruce frowned. He didn't like the feeling of being scrutinized, which made him extremely insecure. This situation didn't last long. One of the men quickly put down the documents and showed a confident expression. "It can't be wrong." He said so, and then showed a warm smile. The attitude towards Bruce changed 180 degrees. "We finally found you, Master Wayne." "Huh." Bruce frowned even deeper. "What's going on? How did he become a master again?" "I'm sorry, we were so happy that we forgot about the whole thing and didn't tell you the whole story in time." The man in the suit began to explain to Bruce. Next, they told a story about an American playboy. Vic Wayne, the young master of the Wayne family in the United States, was a loser who didn't live up to his expectations. He spent his life in debauchery and philandering, and finally died at a young age, leaving a large inheritance without anyone to inherit. The two men in suits were private detectives commissioned by Wayne before his death to find Wayne's possible illegitimate children. After a long investigation, the two of them finally found Bruce Wayne. All the evidence and all the details can match. Master Bruce, you are now the only heir of the Wayne family. The man in the suit said in an exaggerated tone, your father left you a valuable inheritance, and all the assets added up to $3 billion US. Bruce listened, and there was no reaction on his face. He only felt indescribable weirdness now. The only purpose of this so-called father's appearance seemed to be to leave Bruce a large sum of money. Fake Wayne, the so-called fake, doesn't it mean fake? No wonder Owl just said that the world's laws would give him the most suitable identity. Now it seems that all this seems to be cleverly arranged by some power. Looking at Bruce's calm expression, the men in suits thought he was scared. Or he didn't know enough about how much wealth $3 billion US is. So he emphasized again, Master Bruce, this is $3 billion US. Even after deducting the inheritance tax, you can enjoy a lifetime of luxury and comfort. I heard it. Bruce was a little impatient. Isn't it just $3 billion? Is it necessary to say it twice? Put $3 billion aside first, I only have one question now. You say, in view of the huge inheritance, the smiles of the two private detectives were almost flattering. Bruce said word by word, what is the precious inheritance you just mentioned? It took a lot of effort for the two private detectives to make Bruce understand that the so-called precious inheritance was the $3 billion US. Then they saw an unspeakable disappointment on Bruce's young face. It turns out that there is only money. Bruce's lost tone made the two private detectives begin to doubt their lives. This is $3 billion US. Don't you think it's worth it? What are you expecting? In any case, Bruce finally accepted his current identity. Although $3 billion is not much, it is enough for pocket money in this world. Fike Wayne has formed a professional and loyal team to help Bruce solve the inheritance issue in all aspects, so he doesn't have to worry about it at all. Then, the private detective brought an unexpected news. Master Bruce, during our investigation, we discovered more secrets about your life experience. When we investigated your mother, we found that she had a sister, which means that you are not alone, and you still have relatives connected by blood in this world. These light words instantly exploded in Bruce's ears like thunder. He was really shocked, and the development of things was completely beyond his expectations. The private detective continued to tell the good news. She, your aunt, has never known your existence. Now that she has learned about you, she is rushing here in a hurry. I believe you will meet soon. Bruce was stunned and didn't know what to say. Even if he knew that this aunt was arranged by the laws of the world, as long as he was still in this world, the other party was his relative. An inexplicable feeling quietly sprouted in Bruce's heart, which was warm and a little uneasy. He has a family. Bruce began to feel a little scared, afraid to meet this relative he had never met. Bruce's voice was trembling. Can I ask, what kind of person is this aunt? Quote. The private detective patiently replied, she is a very kind and amiable lady. She has entered the palace of marriage and married a dentist named Granger. She has a daughter. Master Bruce, this means that in addition to your aunt, you will also have a cousin. A Ford car was driving on a small road in the suburbs of London, rushing towards the city. Inside the car, the atmosphere of the Granger family seemed unusually heavy. Mr. Granger held the steering wheel tightly, while Mrs. Granger sat in the passenger seat. In the back seat sat their daughter Hermione Granger, an 11-year-old girl with thick brown hair and a pair of big front teeth. Mrs. Granger clenched her hands together, her knuckles turned slightly white because of the force, tears rolled in her eyes, and finally slid down her cheeks. I always thought Martha had a good life in the United States, who knew? Mrs. Granger choked, with unspeakable grief in her heart, and that child, how did he survive all these years? Her husband, Mr. Granger, didn't know how to comfort his wife for a while. He could only keep saying, it's okay, we'll take him home soon, and he won't be lonely anymore. But he's lived in the orphanage for 10 years. Mrs. Granger's voice was filled with endless sorrow, how helpless he is. No one will cook for him when he is hungry. No one will cover him when he is cold. He can't even receive a gift on Christmas. At this point, Mrs. Granger could no longer suppress her sadness and burst into tears. Mom, stop crying. Hermione tried to comfort her emotionally distraught mother by pulling out a clown doll from behind her. Look, I brought a gift to my brother. He will definitely like it. Mrs. Granger did not respond to her daughter, simply immersed in her own sorrow. The car drove all the way and would soon reach its destination. Bruce sat in his room, thinking that something was wrong. Kadam, this is really weird, isn't it? He couldn't understand how, even if he arranged his identity, he could really arrange for a relative to come out. Kadam's mentality is very stable. There is nothing wrong, I can only say that this time you have won the lottery. Arranging your identity is necessary. Without this step, you will be blocked from the world just like Barbados. You will have this new identity only when the world recognizes you. Don't worry, at least in this world, these relatives are real. Even if you go for a paternity test, there will be no problems. Bruce shook his head. I'm not worried about that. Then what are you worried about? I'm worried. There was a hint of hesitation in Bruce's eyes. I will have weaknesses that I shouldn't have because of these family members. Kadam did not answer. In Bruce's heart, the trauma of losing his loved ones has never been healed. On the contrary, for a long time, this has been the source of Bruce's strength. While Bruce was worried about gains and losses, the Granger family had already arrived at the door of the Wu orphanage. Mrs. Granger almost couldn't wait to rush into the orphanage. When she saw the old and simple facilities, her tears flowed again. Bruce, she saw the boy sitting in the room, and her voice trembled. Bruce didn't know how to face it and felt a little embarrassed. Such a touching reunion was actually a fake illusion. But Mrs. Granger didn't care about it. She rushed into the room and hugged Bruce tightly. I'm sorry, I didn't know you all the time. Mrs. Granger choked and said, I'm sorry about your mother. Bruce's heart was touched at this moment. He thought of his real parents. Except for Alfred and himself, no one has ever really felt sad for their death. And at the funeral, everyone told Bruce that his father was a good man and made a lot of contributions to Gotham. But there was little mention of his mother. Just like Mrs. Wayne's death, not many people cared. Mrs. Granger's words now reminded Bruce of his mother. Thank you. Bruce's tears flowed down as soon as he said it. Don't say thank you. Mrs. Granger interrupted Bruce. We are a family, don't say thank you. She hugged Bruce tightly, wanting to give this lonely child more warmth from his relatives. On the other side, outside this touching reunion scene, Kadam shook his head. He flapped his wings and flew out of the room through the window. Let Bruce deal with this matter alone, there is no need for him to watch it all the time. When he flew to the yard, Kadam saw Mr. Granger standing outside the door, handing over matters to the nanny of the orphanage. Next to him stood a little girl with messy hair. Hermione Granger. The future Minister of Magic, holding a clown doll in his arms, was waiting for his mother to take his cousin out of the room and give him a warm welcome. Everything was developing steadily, and Bruce was no longer a rootless tree in the Harry Potter world. Kadam saw the date in the newspaper. Today was February 19, 1991. February 19 was the birthday of Batman Bruce. He was 11 years old. No wonder there was an owl delivering letters to him. Kadam looked up and looked at the relatively clear sky. The letters from Hogwarts had all arrived, but I didn't know when Barbados's pursuers would arrive. Who would be the first to come to this world? Brixton, located in South London, is part of the Lambeth district. The district is famous for rock. It is a culturally rich community, mainly inhabited by African Caribbean people. Unfortunately, it is also a chaotic neighborhood. Drugs and crime are rampant here, and it is not an exaggeration to say that it is the most dangerous place in London. In addition, there are also a large number of dark wizards who are not accepted by the magic world. At this time, in a dark alley, the void suddenly opened a passage. A figure rolled out from inside and knocked down the cardboard boxes piled in the alley. This incident scared the homeless man who was huddled in the corner. He tentatively approached the figure lying on the ground to see if the other party was dead or alive. It was not to call the police, but just to check if the other party had money in his pocket. However, the homeless man just stretched out his hand to the man, and his eyes went black. The other party immediately got up from the ground, flashed behind him at a very fast speed, twisted his arm, and held him tightly. Mercy, mercy. The homeless man reacted quickly, and immediately knelt on the ground with a snap, begging the other party to forgive his recklessness. With such skills, he is definitely not a simple person, and he is probably a core member of a gang. However, the other party did not pay attention to the homeless man's plea for mercy, but asked a strange question instead. Where is this place? What time is it? Although the homeless man felt strange, he could only answer truthfully, "This is London, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon." I asked about the year and date. The man shouted, and began to exert force on his hands. The homeless man was instantly like a frightened bird, shaking all over. 1991, now it is February 19, 1991. February 19th. The man thought for a moment, and then suddenly pushed the homeless man away. "Go away, don't let me see you again." The homeless man immediately crawled out of the alley, and when he turned the corner, he couldn't help but look back and glanced at the figure. Then, he saw the strangest outfit he had ever seen in his life. The man was tall and straight, wearing a brown leather jacket, with 2 guns on his waist and a red metal hood on his head. His whole face was blocked tightly. Such an outfit instantly reminded the homeless man of some characters in horror movies. He didn't dare to breathe and immediately fled from here. Even in the dangerous Brixton area, such a person is definitely a top dangerous person. At this time, the man wearing a red hood was checking his electronic equipment. As expected, the internet connection is completely unavailable. But it doesn't matter, he doesn't rely on these. "Mr. Wayne, today is February 19th, your birthday." The man took off the hood on his face, revealing a young, handsome, but scarred and gloomy face. "In that case, I will give you the best birthday gift, your death." In this strange world, the only person who knows this person's identity is probably Kadam, oh no, an owl. Jason Todd, also known as Red Hood, is a famous anti-hero in DC. He comes from the universe of Arkham Knight, in the 600th world. In addition, he has an abandoned identity, that is, the second-generation Robin who followed Batman. He was adopted by Batman when he was a teenager and was raised almost like his own son. However, due to the arrangement of the Joker, there was a huge misunderstanding and rift between the two. Until now, Jason no longer regards Bruce as an adoptive father, but an enemy who wants to get rid of him as soon as possible. "Everything you taught me, I will use on you." Red Hood Jason's eyes were filled with deep hatred. He will never forget the scene when Bruce gave up on him and left him to die. Now, he finally has a chance to take revenge, and it is against the Batman of the main universe. "Bruce, let me see if your cold-bloodedness is innate. When you were a child, would you beg for mercy when faced with the threat of death?" The Ford belonging to the Granger family was driving on a suburban road. Mr. Granger's profession is a dentist, which is a very respectable profession. For the comfort of his family, he chose to buy a single-family villa in the suburbs. At this time, Bruce and Hermione were sitting in the back seat together, and Bruce was still holding the clown doll given by his cousin. "I will protect you from now on." 11-year-old Hermione was very fond of her sudden extra brother and immediately stepped into the role of sister. And can't wait to start sharing her secrets. "Do you know a wizard? The one who knows magic?" Hermione's birthday is September 19th, and the admission notice to Hogwarts will be delivered to every little wizard on their 11th birthday, but the start of school is fixed on September 1st. This means that Hermione actually received the admission notice last year, but had to wait nearly a year before enrolling. This year of waiting has been excruciating. After Hermione memorized all the textbooks, there were still a few months left. Magic. Bruce raised his brows, thinking of the owl demon following him in the Barbados he saw in the time and space tunnel. It seems that no matter which world you go to, magic is an important part. "Yes, magic." Hermione raised her head slightly, her tone sounding a little smug. She doesn't mean anything malicious, that's how she usually talks. "My family, our family, was full of normal people, but I had a gift for magic and was accepted into a magic academy, and my parents were horrified. The name of that school is Hogwarts, and as far as I know, it's the best magic school. I have memorized all the textbooks now, and I have tried a few simple spells, and they all worked, which shows that I am a born witch. As long as I'm here from now on, if anyone dares to bully you, I will use magic to beat them all away." Bruce had not yet expressed his opinion, but Mrs. Granger, who was sitting in the passenger seat, spoke first. "Hermione," she said rather dissatisfied, "don't show off such a thing in front of your brother. How do you know he won't be admitted to Hogwarts?" Children sometimes speak without restraint, but Mrs. Granger is very sensitive to this. Bruce has spent the past 10 years in misery and must have a low self-esteem. Now that Hermione is showing off in front of him, she may inadvertently hurt him. Thinking of this, she asked, "By the way, Bruce, when is your birthday?" Hermione's admission notice was sent on her birthday. Bruce answered truthfully, "February 19th. Stab." Mr. Granger hit the brakes so hard that the passengers in the car lurched forward. "That's today," Mr. Granger exclaimed. "Bruce, why didn't you tell me earlier?" "We didn't buy you a cake or a gift." Bruce asked doubtfully. "It should be on the adoption certificate, right?" Upon hearing this, Mr. Granger immediately took out the certificate from Wu's orphanage from his pocket. The date of birth was clearly written on February 19, 1980. Ouch! Mr. Granger slapped his forehead. He really hadn't noticed just now, and Mrs. Granger suddenly became extremely angry. This time's carelessness will be difficult to make up for later. Fortunately, I just asked one more question. But Hermione realized something else. She said happily, "If today is Bruce's birthday, he will receive the admission notice right away." Mrs. Granger was a little embarrassed. She just said it casually to comfort Bruce that he would receive the notice. Bruce won't necessarily receive it. Bruce, Hermione. She opened her mouth to vaccinate the two children, but suddenly there was a tapping sound outside the window. Goo-goo. The hoot of an owl came. The people in the car looked outside and saw a little owl with a bandage on its body and a sad face, pecking at the window glass with its beak. At the owl's feet was a parchment envelope. The Hogwarts school emblem is engraved on it, and there is a sentence written at the signature. The back seat of Mr. Granger's car, Mr. Bruce Wayne. Hermione blinked, then let out a deafening scream. Coming. Mrs. Granger accepted the letter, and the little owl flew away as if it were running away. Before leaving, it was still looking around, as if checking whether a certain guy was there. "This owl is hot-headed," Mrs. Granger concluded, then handed the letter to Bruce. She smiled warmly. "Open it, Bruce. This memorable moment should be opened by yourself." Bruce took the letter and after opening it, it turned out to be the admission notice to Hogwarts. Hermione recited the contents of the letter without even reading it. She didn't know how many times she had read her own letter, so she just changed it to Bruce's name. Mrs. Granger looked at the two children and said with a smile, "My daughter has a talent, and my sister's son also has a talent. It seems that the magic talent comes from my family." Mr. Granger was unable to refute these words. Hermione also betrayed the contents of the letter. "We will be waiting for your owl to bring your reply before July 31st, God." Mom. She suddenly realized something very serious. The owl just flew away, and we haven't asked it to take the letter back yet. Oops. Mrs. Granger also realized the problem. Muggle families don't have owls, so they usually let the owls that deliver letters take the letters away directly, which was what Hermione did before. But now the owl just ran away. There's nothing we can do. Mrs. Granger smiled bitterly at Bruce and said, "It seems that I can only buy an owl when I buy you school supplies." "I want one too," Hermione said on the side. "You can't." Mrs. Granger immediately rejected her daughter's proposal. "You have trouble taking care of yourself now, I'll buy you one in the 3rd grade. Hermione was immediately very dissatisfied, and she almost said, "Why, I don't accept it." Bruce watched the mother and daughter quarrel quietly from the side. Then he raised his hand weakly and said, "If it's an owl, there should be no need to buy another one specifically." Huh. Hermione and Mrs. Granger turned to look at Bruce at the same time. "Because I already have one." Bruce looked out the window and called out, "Katem, come out, I know you are there." No one answered. Bruce called out again, but still no response. The atmosphere suddenly froze. For the first time, the young Bruce felt what embarrassment was. This feeling was second only to the middle-aged Batman and Blue Beetle watching his early Black history together. "I really have an owl." Bruce wanted to explain to himself, but Mrs. Granger said, "It's okay, an owl is not worth much, you don't have to feel embarrassed, this is a gift from your aunt." Their family didn't know that Bruce inherited the estate yet. However, this comfort made Bruce even more embarrassed. Finally, at this time, words came from outside the window that only Bruce could understand. "Impolite boy, when you call me in the future, you have to call me Mr. Katem, and you have to say please." Hearing Kadam's voice, Bruce was relieved. As for those rules, they were not too excessive anyway, and he could accept them. Mr. Kadam, please come out. That's better. Kadam flapped his wings and appeared out of thin air, landing on Bruce's shoulder. This scene almost scared the Granger family. Kadam ignored it and said to himself, "You want me to help you go to Hogwarts, right?" Hogwarts Castle is located in the Scottish Highlands, near the wizard village Hogsmeade. In the process of delivering the letter, Kadam will not find the destination. And since Bruce has settled down in the Harry Potter world, Kadam can just start his follow-up plan. He is not taking Bruce on a tour, but to make him stronger so that he can become stronger. Although the Harry Potter world belongs to the low magic world, it also has a lot of magic black technology. It is very valuable for research and study. While replying to Hogwarts, Kadam also wants to take a walk in this world to see what good things can be collected. The first person Kadam thought of was the first generation of Dark Lord Grindelwald. This guy has a revolutionary mindset. If he can become Bruce's teacher, he may be able to teach a completely different Batman. But after a little thought, Kadam realized that this idea is not very realistic at this stage. He only knows that Grindelwald is imprisoned in Nurmengard, a prison in Austria. But he doesn't know exactly where it is, and he has no way to communicate with Grindelwald. I can only go to Hogwarts to take a look first. When Kadam arrived in the Scottish Highlands, it was already dark. Kadam flew under the clouds, squinting his eyes to find his target in the dark. Soon, the silhouettes of the corner towers and towers of Hogwarts Castle appeared on the top of the high cliff opposite the lake. Around Kadam, there were also scattered owls, who came back from all over the world and just led the way for Kadam. Following other owls, Kadam came to the West Tower of Hogwarts. The owl shed is located on the top floor of this tower. A narrow spiral staircase leads from the bottom of the tower on the 8th floor to the battlement at the top of the tower. Kadam flapped his wings and flew into the shed, where there was a wizard responsible for receiving and sending letters, and naturally took away the letter brought by Kadam. After the wizard received the letter, he left the shed. Only Kadam was left standing on the scaffolding, looking around, and then he saw a familiar face. A little owl with a bandage huddled in a corner, buried its head in its chest, trying desperately to reduce its presence. However, Kadam still found it. Kadam happily flew to the little owl, and then flapped a wing on its head. "Coo, what a fate, we meet again. Coo, hee hee." Seeing that he could not escape Kadam, the little owl simply raised his head. "This is his home ground, what else can you do to me?" However, when he saw the scene in front of him, all the other owls instinctively stayed away from Kadam. He immediately deflated. This guy, there is a bit of evil in him. Kadam and the owl communicated without any obstacles. He said with a smile, "Little owl, what's your name?" The little owl hung its head and replied, "Bubbles." "Okay, Bubbles, you are an owl raised in Hogwarts, right?" Kadam nodded and said, "From today on, you are my little brother. Now I have a request, take me to this castle for a walk." Bubbles dared not speak. Could he refuse? He could only do as he was asked and flew into Hogwarts Castle with Kadam. Now the lights in the student dormitory have been turned off, and the whole castle is in darkness. The two owls flew silently along the ceiling, not attracting any attention. Kadam had seen the scenes in Hogwarts Castle countless times in movies, but it was the first time he really entered it. The castle is very large and it will take a while to visit it. But Kadam has his own clear destination. Speaking of the most mysterious place in Hogwarts, it is naturally inseparable from the existence of the Room of Requirement. For centuries, countless wizards have entered it and left items. Although most of them are garbage, there are some real treasures. Kadam and Bruce are just starting out now and are in urgent need of items that can improve their strength. I believe that the Room of Requirement will satisfy his little wish. According to Kadam's memory, the Room of Requirement is located on the 8th floor of Hogwarts Castle, opposite a tapestry. When the user concentrates on the required venue and walks through that wall 3 times, a very smooth door will appear on the wall, and after opening it, you will enter the Room of Requirement. Kadam let Bubble lead the way and came to the place in his memory. He flew over that wall 3 times, silently reciting his request in his heart. "Yingzi, Yingzi, now I and a child, he is a student who will be enrolled in Hogwarts, or in trouble and needs something to protect ourselves. If you are in heaven, please respond to my wish. When everything that should be done was done, Kadam returned to the wall. A wonderful thing really happened, and a door appeared on the wall out of thin air. Goo goo. Quote. Bubbles' eyes widened. It was not surprised by the appearance of the room of requirement. But it was shocked that this foreign owl seemed to know the secrets of Hogwarts better than itself. Don't stand there like an idiot. Push the door open with me. Kadam gave the order without hesitation, and then he and Bubble pushed open the door of the room of requirement with their heads. After the door was opened, the room inside was full of debris. Kadam couldn't help but sigh. Finding the room of requirement was only the first step. The real test was still to come. It was undoubtedly a big project to find something valuable from the garbage that had accumulated over the centuries. I wonder if the room of requirement can understand my intention, Kadam said when he made a wish that he wanted to find something that could protect himself. This was not an excessive request. The room of requirement should understand it, right? Bubble was already flying around in the room of requirement. This was its first time to come to this place, and it was full of novelty. Kadam purposefully searched over and over again on the pile of debris that looked like a small mountain, hoping to see something unusual. For example, a cloak that looked like it was made of precious materials. However, reality soon disappointed him. All he could see was garbage. What a broken wand, a worn-out textbook, an ordinary crown, etc. Wait, a crown. Kadam flew back and fished the crown out of the waste. After a careful inspection, it is indeed very similar to the description in the original book. Ravenclaw's diadem, one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. I found it just like that, how shameful. Kadam was a little disappointed and wanted to throw the diadem back into the garbage. He didn't come to this world to be a savior. There will be someone to clean up after Voldemort, so there is no need for him to worry about it. However, just when Kadam wanted to throw the diadem away, a wave that touched the depths of his soul came from the diadem. Kadam suddenly had an illusion. This diadem seemed to be talking to him. The crown is exquisite in style, but has become tarnished by time. Kadam held it in his claws, as if he could hear a gentle, musical female voice whispering in his ear. She is constantly bewitching Kadam and putting the crown on her head. As long as you wear the crown, you will have infinite wisdom and power. I declined. The bewitchment of the crown had no effect on Kadam. He is not stupid. He knows that there is black magic in the crown, but he eagerly puts it on his head. Is Dumbledore powerful? After putting on Gaunt's ring, he was still eroded by the black magic on it and only had 1 year left to live. Kadam, on the other hand, is just a harmless owl. He might kick his legs on the spot after putting it on. As for that female voice, if you think it is some remnant left by Ravenclaw, you would be too naive. This is Voldemort's Horcrux. If there is consciousness in it, it will only be a fragment of Voldemort's soul. In order to bewitch himself, Voldemort went to great lengths and even used a voice changer. I'm going to use this thing to give Bruce some willpower. I don't know if it will work. Kadam tossed the crown back and forth between his paws, thinking about how to persecute little Bruce. At this moment, a warm power flowed into Kadam's body. This magical power made Kadam couldn't help but feel excited. Kadam immediately realized that this was the tenfold feedback he received after Batman's power increased. He suddenly felt dumbfounded. I was still here thinking about how to improve Bruce's strength, but in the end, he took the first step without saying a word. Time goes back to earlier times. In the Granger family's suburban villa, Mrs. Granger is tidying up the room for Bruce. Hermione brought her wand and textbook and placed them in front of Bruce. She once told Bruce that she had mastered several spells. Now that I'm back home, I have to show it off. This is my wand. Hermione waved the short stick in her hand. Grapevine, 10 3/4 inches, dragon's nerves. The old man who sells wands said that the wand will choose its owner, so this is the best one for me. Next, it's time to witness the miracle. Hermione raised her wand and muttered, Lumos. As soon as the words fell, the tip of the wand immediately emitted a gentle light, and Bruce couldn't help but close his eyes. Hermione stopped her magic and raised her chin, feeling a little proud. How about it? I scared you. Bruce rubbed his eyes and asked in confusion, can't a flashlight do this kind of thing? This is different. Hermione immediately retorted, this is magic. Well, magic. Bruce asked curiously, Is there any more powerful magic? I mean, if you encounter a bad guy, what magic can be used to deal with him? Hermione was evasive. Bruce's question was out of scope and was not covered in the first-grade textbook. So she decided to change the subject. It's too early for you to ask these questions. Learning must be done step by step. You must at least learn the fluorescent spell just now before you can think of more powerful spells, right? This sentence does make sense. So Bruce made a request to this cousin. Can I borrow your wand and try the magic just now? It's not impossible to borrow a wand. Hermione handed her grapevine wand to Bruce, with a hint of smile in her tone. It's okay if you want to try, but it's not easy. I've been practicing for a long time. Lumos. After receiving the wand, Bruce recalled how Hermione cast the spell just now and imitated the spell. The tip of the wand glowed instantly, and the intensity of this fluorescence far exceeded the previous one. Hermione's eyes suddenly opened wide, her expression as if she'd seen a ghost. So that's it. Bruce turned off the fluorescence and felt the changes in his body, as if there was more magic flowing. This is a feeling I've never had before. How did you do that? Hermione suddenly screamed and asked. Bruce's inadvertent behavior almost shattered her pride as a sister. How is it possible? Bruce didn't even read the book, he just watched himself demonstrate it and use the spell perfectly. Hermione couldn't take it. Bruce was a little confused. Isn't that what you taught me just now? Hermione had already demonstrated it completely in front of her. Isn't it normal to learn? It's not that difficult. He handed the wand back to Hermione, who took it silently, then lowered her head and ran back to her room. With a clang, the door was slammed shut. Bruce scratched his head, puzzled. Did I do something wrong? Forget it, it's hard to guess a girl's thoughts. He recalled the process of casting the spell just now, and he had an unprecedented understanding. The feeling of magic flowing through the body and then being released is indeed very different. I feel like a wand isn't necessary. Bruce twisted his wrist, vaguely feeling that with a little practice, he would be able to use the fluorescent spell just now even without a wand. This is a good thing. Bruce didn't like the wand as a medium. You can cast spells with a wand, but you can't cast them without one. Is magic such an inconvenient thing? The magic form that Bruce likes should be to attach magic power to both fists, and then punch hard, with each punch hitting the flesh. He took a boxing posture and waved his fists at the air a few times. Then he shook his head in dissatisfaction. No, my strength and magic power are too weak now. Bruce stood up from the sofa and saw the magic textbook left by Hermione. Or, read it yourself first. What's going on? Kadam really felt very strange. Since the power feedback began to appear, the magic power in his body has been accumulating almost continuously. Even if it is 10 times the efficiency, this is too fast, right? It has not stopped since just now. What did Bruce do? Finally, after more than 20 minutes, the speed of magic power increase slowed down. This is not that Bruce has reached a bottleneck, but the book has been finished. Kadam didn't understand these, but after the growth in that little time just now, he has now been reborn. Now the magic power flowing in his body has exceeded that of ordinary Aurors. Even compared with some professors at Hogwarts, he is not inferior at all. It was only 20 minutes later. I really underestimated Bruce. This guy has much stronger subjective initiative than me. Kadam suddenly had a very strange idea. He really didn't have to worry about anything. As long as he took Bruce to a different world, with his personality, he would naturally work hard to become the strongest existence in that world. Just like now. Speaking of which, it seems that I can use some means to deal with this crown now. He lowered his head and looked at the crown he grabbed. The fragments of Voldemort's soul inside couldn't help but shudder. Chapter 11. Kadam's idea is actually very simple. Horcruxes are blessed with powerful black magic, and simply holding them may cause negative effects. This is because Voldemort's soul affects the holder all the time. But thinking about it conversely, Voldemort's soul itself has great value. It contains the memories of Voldemort himself. Just like the 16-year-old Tom Riddle in the diary. Hidden in this crown is the Voldemort who wants to return to school and become a teacher a few years after graduation. Kadam doesn't want Voldemort's soul, but he wants Voldemort's memory. Especially his memories of learning countless magics, which contain a lot of knowledge that is impossible to learn from textbooks. If these memories can be retrieved, they will be very good teaching materials. After giving them to Bruce to learn, Kadam can also get a tenfold return. But it's not easy to do this. First, he must learn memory-related spells, such as confusion spells, memory spells, legilimency spells, and the like. Then you have to master the method of making Horcruxes, so that you can in turn try to release the memory in the Horcruxes. The previous spells are easy to make and can be found in any spell encyclopedia. Even some old textbooks can be found in the Room of Requirement. However, the method of making Horcruxes was only recorded in the book, Advanced Dark Arts Revealed, which is now kept in Dumbledore's office. It's a bit troublesome to think about. It seems that we have to wait until Bruce starts school and find a way to get into Dumbledore's office. Just as Kadam thought this, a whimsical thought flashed through his mind. He cast his gaze on the crown and murmured to himself, "Is there a possibility that I can deceive it from the Horcrux myself?" The Granger family. Bruce closed the textbook and silently recited the spells he just memorized in his mind. Photographic memory is not an advantage for him, it is just a basic quality. He had mastered all the spells for his first year at Hogwarts. Unlocking spell, floating spell, repairing spell. These primary spells were ineffective, and Bruce was a little dissatisfied. How can we protect Gotham with these alone? He began to entertain the idea of purchasing upper-grade textbooks. When I went to buy textbooks, I bought all these books. At this moment, Mrs. Granger also finished tidying up Bruce's room and asked Bruce to rest. "Thank you, Aunt." After Bruce thanked him, he walked into the room, turned off the light and went to sleep. He had just closed his eyes when, suddenly, it was like a bolt of lightning struck his brain. He opened his eyes immediately and got goosebumps all over his body. After the magic power was enhanced, Bruce's inspiration was also strengthened, and he would occasionally feel the coming danger. It was this kind of feeling that made Bruce feel excited. Danger is approaching. Bruce suppressed his frantic heartbeat, looked at the darkness around him, and thought to himself silently. Calm down, calm down. Even though he was only 11 years old, Bruce didn't yell like a normal kid. What he experienced taught him that in any danger, fear is the biggest enemy. He began to whisper the owl's name in his mind, Kadam. At this time, in Hogwarts, hundreds of kilometers away, Kadam suddenly raised his head. He and Bruce have this connection, being able to communicate with each other no matter how far apart they are as long as they're in the same world. Bruce's sudden call could never be because he missed himself, it was impossible. The only reason is that something unexpected happened. "What's wrong?" Kadam responded. Bruce didn't know how to explain it for a moment, and he didn't know where his ability to sense danger came from. "So I can only state the facts straightforwardly. I feel that there is danger approaching now, and it is probably coming towards me." Speaking of this, Bruce suddenly felt a little sad. If I had had this ability, my parents would not have suffered that kind of misfortune. Kadam understood it as soon as he heard it. This is probably because Bruce's intuitive ability has been strengthened after being exposed to magic. Without worrying too much, he immediately realized that the pursuers from the 600th world were already here. "It's so fast, not even a day has passed. Have you seen what the other person looks like?" Kadam's tone remained unchanged, but he began to feel nervous inside. If it were the villains in DC who did all kinds of evil and would not show any mercy at all when killing civilians, the Granger family might be implicated. He looked around, found a secluded spot, and placed the crown inside. He then flew out of the Room of Requirement and prepared to leave Hogwarts Castle. At this time, he already has magic power in his body, and the speed of his return journey has greatly increased. He can return to London in about half an hour. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm ready to climb out of the window now. Bruce forced himself to calm down and said, "The Granger family has been very good to me. I can't bring them down." The two of them thought of going together. Kadam had already flown high into the sky. He was silent for a moment and said, "That's okay. Just go west. It's not a residential area, but there are hidden spots on the road." He had already observed that the Granger family lived in the suburbs, and there were woods all the way to the west. Bruce only needed to deal with that person for a while, and he would be able to get there. And this goal is not difficult to achieve. Kadam couldn't help but guess the identity of the pursuer. His strength wouldn't be so strong that it would make people despair. This was limited by the strength of the world. And he must have a deep hatred for Bruce, otherwise he wouldn't rush to arrive first. That should be the villain from Gotham. If so, Tatum was not so worried. Although the villains in Gotham were crazy, they had a special feeling for Batman. Even if they caught Bruce, they wouldn't do it immediately. They must seize this opportunity to express their hatred for Batman and explain their plans. This time was enough for Tatum to arrive. After hearing Tatum's advice, Bruce made up his mind. He had a high execution ability. The moment he knew what he was going to do, he turned over and jumped out of the window. Jumping down from the upstairs, Bruce fell rapidly. Wingardium Leviosa. At this moment, Bruce directly recited the spell of floating spell. Several wooden boards flew over quickly, caught Bruce, and landed him on the ground steadily. Sure enough, you can cast a spell without a wand. This was Bruce's first attempt at casting a spell without a wand, and he didn't expect it to succeed directly. At this time, the surroundings were silent and dark, but Bruce keenly felt a cold gaze falling on his back. He turned around suddenly. Then he saw a tall and well-proportioned figure standing on the roof of the Granger family. He had a red metal hood on his face. In his hands were two pistols flashing with cold light, aimed at Bruce. When he saw Bruce appear in his field of vision, Red Hood Jason felt his blood boil. Finally found you. Memories of his time as Robin surfaced in his mind, then quickly shattered. What overflowed was only unforgettable hatred. Those memories that were considered precious in the past have become a source of pain for Jason. Jason Todd once considered Batman his father. As a child, Jason was a street gangster who was noticed by Bruce for stealing the tires of the Batmobile. Bruce discovered Jason's talent for crime. In order to prevent the child from growing crooked, Bruce adopted him as his adopted son and later developed him into the second-generation Robin. It sounds like a heartwarming story, but Bruce's personal problems are too big. His teaching methods were too harsh and strict. Jason had been following Bruce for so long, and he had never even seen Bruce smile at him. Although Bruce's original intention was to train him, it was still a bit too cruel for a child. Jason followed Bruce and never felt any family affection. He was like a troubled child, always wondering whether Bruce loved him or not. He desperately wanted to prove himself, so in the process of fighting crime, his methods became more and more extreme. All he got in return was criticism from Bruce again and again. There are obvious problems with such a relationship, not to mention the fact that the Joker is involved. The Joker came up with an interesting plan. He used Jason's late mother as bait and captured Jason in Arkham Asylum. Another forged videotape recorded the entire process of the Joker beating Jason to death with a steel pipe. Finally, the tape was sent to Batman. After Jason disappeared, Bruce also searched for Jason for a long time. But after seeing the clown's video, he chose to give up. He didn't show any outward sadness, he was still the Dark Knight of Gotham City. Batman's weakness is never seen. Even after a few weeks, he accepted Tim Drake as the third Robin. Gotham City's bat lights are on as usual, but Jason's nightmare has just begun. He was imprisoned in Arkham Asylum and tortured by the Joker and the madmen in the asylum for a full year. Jason hoped countless times that Batman would come to save him, but Batman never came. Pain and resentment distorted Jason's mind, and coupled with the clown's bewitchment, all his love for Bruce finally turned into hatred. Boundless hatred. I used to trust you so much. At this time, Jason stood on the roof of the Granger family, staring at Bruce. But how long did it take for you to replace me? A week, a month. I used to trust you so much, but you left me there to die. Even after you knew that I was killed by the Joker, you didn't want to avenge me. Jason's teeth were broken. His hatred of Bruce mainly comes from two aspects. One was that Bruce gave up on him and quickly found a replacement, the third-generation Robin. The second is that Batman knows that the Joker is his murderer, but is unwilling to kill the Joker to avenge him. For Jason, if Batman was killed by the Joker, he would definitely kill the Joker at all costs and avenge Bruce. Thousands of words combined into one sentence. Batman betrayed Jason. Now he transforms into the Red Hood and returns from hell. Bruce Wayne, you can go die. Jason jumped up from the roof and landed firmly on the ground. At this time, Bruce actually had no idea who the person in front of him was. Jason's hatred comes from Batman's future and has nothing to do with Bruce, who is now only 11 years old. But Jason didn't care about any of this. Since they are all Bruce Wayne, and this Bruce even comes from the main universe, it would be even more satisfying to take revenge on him. Killing him in advance can also make himself in the main universe less painful. Bruce stepped back step by step, trying to stay away from this dangerous person who suddenly appeared. The Dark Knight, Gotham's patron saint. Jason's eyes under the mask showed a hint of pleasure. Look at how embarrassed you are now. Bruce was still retreating, like a panicked child who didn't know how to face such a crisis. Jason said mockingly, "You always taught me to be calm and obedient to true knowledge, but now you look at yourself and it seems that you haven't done it either. I don't know you." Finally, facing Jason, Bruce said his first words. And the tone of this sentence was not at all as scary as the one he showed just now. On the contrary, Bruce is extremely calm now. Is the current situation dire? Bruce recalled the alley where his parents died in front of him. It was the night he was most helpless and scared. "I have experienced the greatest pain in my life, and everything in the future will be trivial. But I know you." Jason was angered by Bruce's response. He raised his pistol to Bruce's head and yelled, "If you confess to me now, I can still give you a happy life." But Bruce's response didn't change at all. "I told you, I don't know you." Not only that, he finally started his long-planned action. Tarantella. Bruce suddenly stretched out his arms, opened his palms, and recited the dance spell in Elementary Spells. "What are you doing?" Jason was suddenly stunned, and then his whole body began to be out of control. His legs kept twitching, as if he was dancing a quick step. What's going on? Jason knew that this should be a kind of magic-like power, which also existed in his own world. But why did Bruce know this trick? Where did he learn it from? "I knew you had been hiding something from me." Jason hated it more and more. He had been with Bruce for so long, but he didn't know that he had learned magic at the age of 11. Bruce didn't care about these. He seized the opportunity created now and took the initiative to attack and seek a glimmer of life for himself. Wingardium Leviosa. He recited the spell of floating spell again, and the two guns in Jason's hands suddenly floated up. Then one fell to the ground and the other was caught by Bruce. Bruce clenched the pistol with both hands and pointed it at Jason's legs. He didn't want to kill people, but he didn't mind solving the enemy's ability to move. Click. Bruce pulled the trigger, and the gun unexpectedly jammed. This situation can only prove that this is an empty gun. How is it possible? Bruce couldn't believe that a killer who came to kill him had no bullets in his gun. "Hey," Jason suddenly sneered, and in the constant confrontation of willpower, his dance steps finally stopped. Then he kicked Bruce away with lightning speed. "I didn't want to use a gun against you," Jason said coldly. "You don't deserve it." Bruce fell to the ground and held his stomach. It hurt, but it was bearable. He only had one thought: is this guy sick? Since there are no bullets in the gun, why did you just point the gun at my head? Jason picked up the gun that had fallen on the ground with his feet, took it and put it back to his waist. He pressed the hood with his hand and took it off. The young face full of scars appeared in front of Bruce's eyes. "It doesn't matter if you don't know me, but do you see these scars? These are all thanks to you." Jason slowly came closer, each step putting pressure on Bruce a little more. The situation is becoming more and more urgent, and Bruce is constantly thinking about solutions to the crisis in his mind. There are not many spells recorded in Elementary Spells. He can think of something that is a bit harmful, which is the cutting spell. But the power is still too weak and not enough to deal with the enemy. What to do? At this moment, the sky was gradually covered by dark clouds. Jason took out a swing stick from his waist and swung it out of the air. The iron stick stretched and made a whirring sound. The Joker had beaten Jason countless times with a crowbar, and now it was time for Bruce to experience the pain as well. Then he saw Bruce's childish face again. Is it too much to use an iron rod against a child? Jason struggled for a moment and put back the swinging stick. Using his fist would be enough. Bruce just watched Jason perform alone, taking out the swinging stick for a while, then taking it back again, with an extremely angry face for a while, and hesitation for a while. When Jason's face showed anger, Bruce could clearly feel the danger. He really wanted to kill himself. But when Jason began to hesitate, the feeling of danger disappeared instantly. This led Bruce to a conclusion. The person in front of me may be suffering from schizophrenia, with two different personalities pulling at each other in his head. In this case, I might be able to use this section. He clutched his stomach and tried to stand up, but this move made Jason instantly stressed. Want to escape? At this time, Jason finally picked Bruce up without any hesitation, raised his hand and slapped him down. Bruce was prepared for a beating, but after waiting for a moment, nothing happened. Jason picked up Bruce and brought him to a tree. The rope was taken out from nowhere and Bruce was tied to the tree in a few strokes. I'm here to kill you. I will kill you. This is what I have been looking forward to for a long time. Jason kept mumbling such words, not for Bruce, but as if he was talking to himself. Bruce was tied to the tree, unable to move, and watched Jason walking around in front of him, extremely troubled. His fists clenched and relaxed, and he clearly had deep-seated hatred in his heart, but he couldn't make a move at the critical moment. This person doesn't seem as dangerous as you thought. Bruce had such an idea, so he asked tentatively, "Are you familiar with future me?" Cooked. Of course it's cooked. This sentence saved Jason, and he could finally put on his sinister look again. Jason roared, "I once trusted you so much, but you betrayed me. Then can you tell a story about you and me?" Bruce was also willing to take risks at this time. He began to take advantage of his age, pretending to be harmless, and wanted to communicate with Jason. This is also a skill that all superheroes must master. We need to talk. I have nothing to talk about with you. Jason gritted his teeth and said, "Yes, I used to admire you very much, and you were also very important to me." Although he said he didn't want to talk about it, Jason unknowingly started talking about his past with Bruce. Bruce listened, and the more he listened, the more he felt that the Bruce in Jason's mouth didn't look like him. Yes, Bruce did want to become a hero who protects Gotham and drives evil out of his homeland. But the Bruce in Jason's mouth is too twisted and old-fashioned, completely inhumane. It's like completely closing himself off, not allowing anyone to enter his heart. Is this really me? Will he become like this in the future? Bruce couldn't get the answer for a while, but he had a vague feeling that the answer was yes. Seeing Bruce's thoughtful expression, Jason said coldly, "It seems that you are also frightened by your own performance in the future. It's so pitiful, Bruce, that even you don't recognize yourself when you grow up." How sad. After Jason said these words hidden in his heart, he felt relieved. He was no longer in a hurry to kill Bruce, but just wanted to take him back as agreed. Take it back to the main universe of the 600th world. He wanted to knock Bruce unconscious first and then proceed with the rest of the action. However, at this moment, he saw Bruce's expression change from solemn to relaxed. It was as if after delaying for so long, reinforcements finally arrived. Who is it? Before Jason could even turn around, a sudden change occurred. A large number of bats suddenly flew out from his nostrils, mouth, and even clothes. These bats surrounded him and kept biting his body. The number of bats kept increasing, seemingly endless, coming from a distance like a big dark cloud hanging over Jason. Jason kept waving his arms, trying to drive away these creatures in the dark night, but it was useless. Instead, more bats flew out of his sleeves while he was waving his arms. What's going on? Jason had no idea what was going on and why this happened. Bats, this very representative creature, made Jason think of a possibility. Could it be? Batman is here, not this Bruce tied to the tree, but the adult Batman from another universe. It might even be the Batman from his own universe. Bruce. Jason wanted to roar to the sky, but he just opened his mouth and countless bats flew out of his mouth. He couldn't speak, so he could only express his anger with actions. Now he couldn't care about anything else. Jason was annoyed by this group of bats and couldn't move. The only choice was to retreat temporarily. I will come back to find you. He took a last look at Bruce and left quickly while being driven away by a group of bats. Bruce had been watching this scene. He was afraid of bats, but today the bats saved him. Is this spell pretty good? Suddenly, Ketum's voice sounded in Bruce's ears, and the other party flapped its wings and landed on Bruce's shoulder. Bat spirit spell, I saw it in an old book in the room of requirement. Very powerful, Bruce murmured, can you teach me? No, Ketum shook his head. Your current magic cultivation is only at the peak of the 1st grade. When you reach the 4th grade and reach the great perfection, I will teach you. After the rope on Bruce was untied, he fell to the ground. He climbed up with his hands, feeling an indescribable pain all over his body. Ketum said, I don't know if you were lucky or not this time. The first person to come is Jason Todd. How to say it, there is a feeling of being unexpected and reasonable. Speaking of hatred for Bruce, Jason at this stage can indeed be said to be the deepest. But although he shouted fiercely, he might not be able to kill Bruce in the end. Besides, this is still the young version of Bruce. Bruce twisted his wrist and ignored Ketum's complaints. He said afterward, the man just kept calling me Batman. Is this my future identity? Bat. Bruce was wondering what his motive was for choosing such a name. You hate the name Batman? Ketum asked back, then you can also take other titles, such as Captain Gotham. No, I don't hate it. Bruce shook his head and chewed on the title of Batman repeatedly. The more he thought about it, the better he felt about this title. Bats are the creatures he fears the most. He chose the title of Batman, presumably to bring the same fear to his enemies. Ketum shrugged and flapped his wings to go back. The grudge between Bruce and Bats cannot be explained in 1 or 2 sentences. The timeline involved spans hundreds of thousands of years. In the big event, Final Crisis, Batman was teleported to the prehistoric era by Darkseid after losing his memory. Barbados also saw Batman at that time and thought that this person was very similar to himself, so he chose him as the portal for the plan to invade the main world. Don't worry about the subsequent specific details. In short, just figure out a concept. Bruce became Batman, which was a destiny set hundreds of thousands of years ago. Ketum flew in front, and Bruce walked silently behind. The more he thought about it, the more scared he felt. He was too lax before, and he had no power to fight back when he met Jason. If it wasn't for a strange combination of circumstances, he would have died. No, this must never happen again. Plan. This word suddenly appeared in Bruce's mind. That's right, no matter what happens in the future, you should be prepared in advance, and you can't just prepare one plan, you need multiple plans. If one plan fails, the next plan will immediately make up for it. Bruce began to make it clear in his mind that he must be a person who always has a plan B. Only in this way can he feel safe. Because he has too many enemies. The next morning, the Granger family took Bruce to London. We're going to buy you school supplies, Mrs. Granger said with a smile while sitting in the passenger seat. Hermione sat in the back seat with her head down, her messy hair blocking her face, but it can be seen that she is still sulking. Hermione. Mrs. Granger was a little helpless. She already knew what happened between the 2 children. She knew her daughter very well. She had always been unwilling to admit defeat. Bruce's magic talent that could be seen at a glance last night really hit this girl. Hermione raised her head, pretending to be indifferent. I'm fine, Mom. Ah, Mrs. Granger said no more, thinking that it would be good for the child to suffer some setbacks. Let her see that there are people better than others, and it will also make Hermione less arrogant in the future. The car drove all the way to London and soon arrived at Charing Cross Road, stopping in front of a small and dirty bar. In theory, for young wizards born in Muggles, professors usually visit them in person to guide them into the magical world. But when Hermione received the notice, the Granger family had already gone through the process once. With the previous experience, they could come this time. This is the Leaky Cauldron, and you can go to the magical world from here. Hermione whispered to Bruce. Although her hard knot was still not untied, she was still playing the role of a sister seriously. Thank you. Bruce also thanked Hermione in a low voice. Hermione glanced at Bruce, and perhaps because he was pleasing to the eye, her anger dissipated a lot. After getting off the car, they walked through the bar and came to a small courtyard surrounded by walls. There were only trash cans and weeds here. Hermione stood on tiptoe, raised her wand, and tapped a brick 3 times. The brick that had been knocked shook, and the whole wall began to move. A small hole appeared in the middle, and the hole became bigger and bigger. Soon, a wide archway appeared in front of them, leading to a winding, endless cobblestone street. Welcome to Diagon Alley. Hermione immediately regained her confidence. She put away her wand and raised her chin slightly. At that moment, People who didn't know would think that Diagon Alley was opened by her. Diagon Alley is a wizard commercial street, with a dazzling array of shops on both sides of the street, with all kinds of strange signs and goods. Let's go to Gringotts to exchange money first. 50 gold galleons should be enough. Aunt, I have my own money. Bruce was really not used to spending other people's money on everything. Although this was out of his aunt's concern, he still felt that it was better for him to pay for it himself. It's not like he couldn't afford it. It took a while for Bruce to explain clearly that he inherited the Wayne family's legacy. Although he didn't say the specific number, his words and deeds conveyed a meaning. He, Bruce Wayne, is a rich man. Mrs. Granger couldn't persuade Bruce in the end, so she had to agree that Bruce would pay for it himself this time. Soon they exchanged pounds for galleons from Gringotts, and Bruce saw goblins for the first time. They were so ugly. During the money exchange, Bruce just watched from the side, and after hearing a few words between Mr. Granger and the goblin, he vaguely realized that there seemed to be loopholes in the exchange rate of the wizarding world. Even now, I can think of a way to collapse their market. At this moment, Kadam flew to Bruce's shoulder. Boy, don't think about it. He seemed to know what Bruce was thinking. Finance is always just a means, and the underlying logic of social operation is violence. If you collapse the wizard's finance, they will use violence to take back what belongs to them, and then the only ones who will suffer will be the lower-level Muggle people. Bruce immediately threw his previous thoughts out of his mind. While Mr. Granger was exchanging money, Hermione and Bruce were chatting. I learned in advance that Hogwarts has 4 major colleges: Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Slytherin and Ravenclaw. Each college corresponds to different qualities. I think I should go to Ravenclaw. I heard that there are smart wizards there. 4 major colleges? Bruce asked. What qualities do these colleges correspond to? I know this. It was Kadam who interrupted again. They correspond to Corn, Nurgle, Slaanesh and Zinch respectively. The owl is saying strange things again. Bruce has gradually become accustomed to Kadam's speaking style and knows that sometimes the meaning of nouns that pop out of the owl's mouth cannot be understood deeply. And he also found that Kadam's temperament seemed to have changed a little since he came back from Hogwarts. It no longer looks like a simple owl like before. For example, the opponent's wings can now perform various difficult movements and are as flexible as human hands. Just like now, Kadam is putting his wings on Bruce's head and rubbing it, a bit like rubbing a dog's head. Bruce slapped Kadam's wings away and turned his attention back to chatting with Hermione. Hermione was answering the question just now. I just read the introduction in the book. Gryffindor represents courage and justice, Hufflepuff represents kindness and loyalty, Ravenclaw represents erudition and wisdom, and Slytherin represents ambition and honor. All freshmen who enter will be sorted into these 4 colleges. I don't know exactly how they will be sorted. It may be because of exams. Bruce also became interested and began to think about which college he would be sorted into. However, at this time, no, Kadam said in Bruce's ear again. In fact, there is a hidden academy in Hogwarts called Azkaban. Only students with great wisdom and courage can enter. Bruce, Azkaban is the best for you. Choose. Real. Bruce was stunned. There is such a hidden academy in Hogwarts. Is it to cultivate the best students? He is indeed the king of demons. He actually knows such secrets. Believe me, Bruce, I can help you. Kadam assured Bruce, as long as you have my guidance, you will definitely be able to enter Azkaban. This, Bruce had no reason to refuse. He came to this world to learn and gain the ability to change Gotham. It would be great if he could enter the hidden academy. Then it's up to you. Don't worry, I'll keep it with you. Kadam flapped his chest with his wings, as if you can rest assured that I will do the work. Hermione looked dumbfounded on the sidelines. Although she couldn't understand what Kadam was talking about, this owl was unusual at first glance with such humanized actions. Where did Bruce get it? Can you give her a plastic surgery too? Soon, Mr. Granger finished exchanging galleons. They led Bruce out of Gringotts while Mrs. Granger checked the shopping list that came with the admission letter. Go buy school uniforms first, then textbooks and potions equipment, and finally wands. But Hermione suddenly became very active. Mom, you can buy textbooks and crucibles. I'll take Bruce to buy a wand first. She wondered what kind of wand Bruce would get. Bruce felt that this was not good. He wanted to buy some upper-grade books, but Kadam stopped his idea again. Why spend that wasted money? They are all in the Hogwarts library. In the wizarding world, truly valuable books never end up in bookstores. For Kadam and Bruce now, the growth of magic power in the body is not a problem, they have no bottleneck. What they need is a spell that can effectively release these magic powers. After comprehensive consideration, the restricted book section of Hogwarts is their best choice. Mrs. Granger agreed with Hermione's suggestion, so Hermione took Bruce to the small and shabby shop. The gold-lettered sign on the door has peeled off, and it reads, Ollivanders, making exquisite wands since 382 BC. The shop is very small, with only one bench and thousands of long and narrow boxes that almost reach the ceiling. The wand will choose its own owner. Hermione explained enthusiastically, among these many wands, there must be a wand waiting for your arrival. I don't need a wand, Bruce thought to himself. He can cast spells without a wand, which means nothing to him. We meet again, Miss Hermione Granger. An old man came out from behind the counter. Grapevine, 10 3/4 inches, dragon's nerves, a good wand, right? Great potential, adaptable, it's strong, how about using it? Very easy, Mr. Ollivander. Hermione always remained polite in front of outsiders. She then introduces Bruce to Ollivander, her cousin who also comes to buy a wand. Another little wizard with potential. Ollivander glanced at Bruce and took out a long tape measure with silver scales from his pocket. Which hand do you use to use the wand? I'm right-handed, Bruce answered. Then I probably know. The tape measure flew out of Ollivander's hand and began to operate on its own, measuring Bruce's size. Then he himself removed a stack of long boxes from the shelves. Try this one, he said. Platinus, 11.5 inches, unicorn hair. Bruce took the wand, and as soon as he held it in his hand, Ollivander's hair began to explode inexplicably. No, no. Ollivander snatched the wand away with lightning speed and inserted a new one. Hawthorn, phoenix feathers, 9 inches long. Try it. But as soon as Bruce tried, Ollivander himself seemed to have been hit by an invisible blow and was knocked away a long distance. No, no, try this one. Ollivander got up from the ground and changed to a new one, ebony, dragon's heartstring, 8 3/4 inches, this one will work, it will definitely work. Bruce tried again. This time, Ollivander was hung upside down in the air, waving his hands around, looking extremely embarrassed. Until Bruce let go of the wand, Ollivander fell down with a plop. After that, this situation kept happening. As long as Bruce held a new wand, Ollivander would be hurt. He kept trying and kept getting hurt. Bruce couldn't stand it anymore. Hermione had already opened her mouth wide and entered a state of shock and petrification. I understand. Finally, before being completely tortured and broken apart, Ollivander grinned and came to a conclusion. Kid, I'm not good at learning. Ollivander said weakly and trembling. His whole body seemed to be repeatedly run over by an elephant. None of the wands I made are suitable for you. Go to other wand shops, such as Grigorovich Wand Shop in Europe. Mr. Ollivander. Bruce wanted to say something, and then he saw Ollivander stuffing 7 galleons into his pocket. He almost pleaded, Mr. Bruce, I'll pay for your wand. Please go to other wand shops. Finally, Bruce and Hermione walked out of the wand shop in a daze. This is impossible. Hermione felt that her worldview was shocked. It's okay, don't worry about it. Bruce comforted her in return, I don't actually need a wand. No, you need it. Kadam on his shoulder suddenly said, a first-year student who casts without a wand is too conspicuous, and a wand can be used as a cover. Bruce was helpless, but you saw that there is no one suitable for me. That's because Ollivander's craftsmanship is not good. Look at me, wait a moment. The owl flew away, and not long after, he flew back with a short stick in his mouth. He threw the short stick to Bruce. Try this, made by the Demon King Katum, the unparalleled Supreme Wand. Supreme Wand. Bruce ran his finger over the wand, and the sawdust on it was not even scraped clean. Is this just an ordinary stick? Or did you just carve it out? It's the Supreme Wand. Katum emphasized again. Sycamore wood, 14 inches, the core is the hard work of the Demon King. 14 inches, this is no longer a wand, but a stick for beating people. Bruce was completely speechless. Sycamore wood, the most common ornamental wood on the streets of London. According to this, Bruce casually broke off a branch on the side of the road, and it was the new supreme wand. What made him even more unbearable was the material of the core. What the hard work of the Demon King. Katum, this guy, doesn't even want to pluck a feather. Bruce put away the supreme wand and didn't want to say more. In fact, Katum's craftsmanship is quite good. In just a short time, the wand he made is also quite good. Hermione, who was standing by, saw all this and felt more and more that Bruce's owl was extraordinary. It's so human. Knowing that his owner was sad because he couldn't buy a wand, he actually brought a stick to comfort Bruce. I really want to raise one too. But apart from these, Hermione was really worried about Bruce. If he couldn't buy a wand, wouldn't he be unable to enter school? It's okay, Hermione, I can buy it somewhere else. Bruce racked his brains to think of an excuse. Have you forgotten that the Wayne family has its roots in the United States? Maybe it has a connection with the magic world. I can get a wand from the United States. Don't worry, I will definitely get it before school starts. Hermione was skeptical, but she couldn't think of a better solution. She couldn't help but have an opinion about Ollivander's wand shop. They said it was a 1,000-year-old shop, but it was just this capable. Bruce soon met Mrs. Granger and the others. Hermione did not tell the adults about this matter, fearing that they would worry. Since Bruce said that he could solve it, let's believe him for the time being. After buying the school uniforms, they set off on the return journey. All the preparations before school enrollment have been completed, and the next step is to wait for the start of school. There is still half a year. The Granger family applied for Bruce's admission to Hermione's elementary school. Although there is only the last half year left, Mrs. Granger still hopes that Bruce can get along with more peers. The experience of growing up in an orphanage can easily create a lonely personality. She had good intentions, but it was her daughter Hermione who suffered. In order to better integrate Bruce into the lives of his peers, he was arranged to be in the same class as Hermione. Then in the following time, Hermione saw what it meant to be crushed in all aspects. Bruce is simply a human being who has evolved to the extreme. Not only does he have a photographic memory, he can learn any knowledge once, and he is very charming, and it is easy to get the favor of all classmates. What made Hermione feel the gap even more was Bruce's almost cruel self-control. He treated every day of his life as an important task. From morning to night, every hour and every minute were carefully planned and used by him. Physical training, magic power enhancement, mind training. These almost rigorous plans have become Bruce's daily routine. He even felt that the intensity was not enough. Hermione no longer had any jealousy towards Bruce. What she felt was an insurmountable gap. Hermione, the curly queen, finally met someone who was curlier than her. In Bruce's room, Katum yawned and threw a piece of candy into his mouth. This was a snack prepared by Mrs. Granger for Bruce. Bruce never ate it, and it all ended up in Katum's stomach. If you keep going like this, you'll have problems sooner or later. Katum said, you're only 11 years old, you haven't fully developed yet, your body can't stand this kind of intense physical training. Bruce didn't answer immediately. He continued to maintain the plank position, only sweat kept sliding down his cheeks and dripping onto the floor. After a long while, he spoke. His voice was childish but firm. But Barbados's pursuers will come at any time. Katum, I can't stop. Resting is equivalent to surrendering. I don't want to regret it. Katum said helplessly. Then it's up to you. After experiencing the death of his parents and Jason's pursuit, Bruce felt the threat of death twice, which is absolutely intolerable. His character hidden in his bones is full of persecution paranoia. After becoming Batman, Bruce was able to implant a virus in his teammate Cyborg's body shortly after he met him. The reason was just because he was afraid that Cyborg would become an enemy. Not only Cyborg, but all the teammates of the Justice League, Batman has specially prepared a plan to destroy them. This even includes how to destroy himself. So much so that DC villains no longer make evil plans, they just steal Batman. How insecure does a person have to be become like this? Now Jason is still on the run, and more pursuers may come at any time. Bruce lives in anxiety every day. Although pressure can bring motivation, if you force yourself to have such great pressure, you will drive yourself crazy sooner or later. Katum finally complained and let Bruce go. He couldn't easily change Bruce's mind. This man was so paranoid. However, it was also thanks to Bruce's luck that Kadam's physical fitness also rose like a rocket. After all, it was a tenfold return. Without bragging, Kadam can now withstand gunshots with just physical strength. Bruce continued his training, thinking silently in his heart, Jason must be improving, he will come back again. Last time he failed because of hesitation. This time, I can't pin my hopes on the enemy. The next time he sees Jason, Bruce must have the ability to defeat him head-on. Nocturne Alley. This place where dark wizards and dark magic gather is always shrouded in a gloomy atmosphere. Jason Todd came here with 2 guns hanging on his waist. Beside him, there was a man in a tattered wizard robe. He was hunchbacked and had a huge wart on his pointed nose. This was a black wizard, whose name was unknown. After being attacked by bats and retreating in a panic, Jason reacted quickly. Those bats were probably not Batman's means, but a magical attack. After a period of understanding, Jason found that this world was no different from the ordinary world on the surface, and there were no superpowers. But he experienced those magics himself. This can only mean one thing, that the magic world is isolated from the real world, and the main supernatural power in this world is probably only magic. In order to prevent the situation of being at a loss in the face of magic again, Jason decided to start contacting the magic world. He spent a long time, using the detective methods of Professor Batman, to find the black wizard next to him. The other party seemed to have lost his magic power for some reason and urgently needed a large sum of money to purchase materials and make potions to remove the curse. And Jason could provide this money. The condition was to take Jason into the magic world, and it would be best if he could gain some magic power by the way. The 2 sides quickly reached a deal, which led to the current scene. The Diagon Alley we passed just now looked so normal, but I didn't expect that such a dark place was hidden deep inside. Jason complained and followed the dark wizard into the depths of Nocturne Alley. Walking on the road, a sickly man came towards him. He didn't look old, but his face had wrinkles prematurely, his hair was gray, and his robe was full of patches. The dark wizard arched his nose and recognized this man. Remus Lupin, he said with disgust, disgusting werewolf. Werewolf. Jason is no stranger to this word. There is also a werewolf in the 600th world. He is a teammate of Frankenstein, a superhero who is not even a third-tier superhero. He was keenly aware of the disgust shown by the dark wizard. It seemed that werewolves were not a popular species in this world. When Lupin passed them by, the dark wizard immediately rubbed his arm, as if the mere presence of the werewolf beside him made him feel viscerally uncomfortable. The dark wizard sneered, "You should stay away from these guys from now on, they are a group of creatures living in the sewers." So interesting. Instead, Jason became interested in werewolves. What kind of blasphemous creatures they were that could make even this lowly dark wizard look down upon them. Do you hate werewolves? Hateful. This word is too mild. They are a group of soulless evil creatures. They deserve to die. The dark wizard began to tell the details of the werewolf, something he was paid to do. Lycanthropy is a magical disease. No one is born a werewolf. The dark wizard said, this disease will spread among people through the contact of saliva and blood. You know, when a deformed werewolf bites someone, the person bitten will also turn into a werewolf. At this point, he began to rub his skin again, as if he had been infected by lycanthropy. The leader of these guys is Fenrir Greyback, a crazy werewolf who is dedicated to infecting more people, especially children. In short, you just need to stay away from werewolves in the future. Child. Jason's eyes suddenly narrowed. A group of guys who target children, aren't these the worst and most despicable criminals? He put his hand on the gun on his waist and asked casually, then why don't you deal with these guys? I mean, kill them all. The dark wizard immediately shook his head, kill all the werewolves. The price is too high. They are very good at sticking together. But having said that, if you think werewolves are disgusting and want to kill a few to vent your anger, Lupin just now is a good choice. He is an anomaly among werewolves. Humans hate him and werewolves also reject him. This guy was born to be despised by everyone. After saying that, the dark wizard laughed strangely. He seemed to be in a desperate situation, but he found a long-lost sense of superiority from Lupin. But little did he know that his last words hit the most unknown corner of Jason's heart. Jason's tone became tougher. No one is born to be disliked. Even though he was born into a family of criminals and was betrayed by his adoptive father, Jason didn't think anyone had the right to dislike him. The Dark Wizard was stunned by Jason's appearance and quickly explained, "I'm talking about Lupin, the werewolf. Not you." Of course Jason knew this. But he couldn't help but turn around and look at Lupin's back. In fact, the other party had not gone far. He must have heard what the Dark Wizard said just now, but he never looked back and did not dare to defend himself. So cowardly. Jason suddenly felt an unknown anger in his heart. Why would a person who has been ostracized by the world not even dare to resist? Stop. By some strange mistake, he sternly stopped Lupin from walking away. The Dark Wizard was so frightened by this sound that he trembled. He looked at Jason for a while, and then at Lupin, who looked back in confusion. "What are you going to do?" The Dark Wizard felt his voice trembling. "Nothing to do." Jason strode towards Lupin. "I just want to reform a coward." Bang! Lupin was pressed against the wall, grinning in pain. When Jason walked towards him, he felt something was wrong. As soon as he took out the wand from his arms, he was disarmed in the blink of an eye. Lupin didn't even see clearly how the other party did it. At this time, Jason held Lupin's wand in his hand and turned it over with interest. "Is this the source of your wizard's power? Without this thing, you can't do anything. Give it back to me," Lupin said weakly. "Shut up." Jason interrupted Lupin arrogantly. Looking at the other person's useless look, he became more and more angry. "I heard that you were a werewolf. Are you still ostracized by humans and your own compatriots? What have you done to make yourself live such a humble life?" "I don't need to explain to you." Lupin was already out of breath. The full moon was coming soon, and he was now at his weakest. "It's really not necessary. Remember your toughness." Jason put Lupin's wand away, and it seemed he didn't want to return it. Lupin was anxious. Of course there were robberies in the wizarding world, but I had never heard of anyone robbing wands. Almost everyone has one of these. Of course, more importantly, if Lupin's wand was robbed, he would have no money to buy a new one. "I don't want your wand, just put it in my hand and taste it." Jason told Lupin, "My name is Jason Todd, and if nothing else happens, I will be here for a long time. If you want your wand back, you can come to me at any time, but until then, you have to agree to a few small conditions." Lupin almost laughed angrily. He had never seen such a shameless guy. "Ahem, stop talking, I want my wand now." "Oh, not now," Jason said nonchalantly. "I have to study this thing. Of course, it won't break. If you are worried, you can follow me for the time being. I just need some help." Huh, Lupin was suddenly stunned. Wasn't this guy robbing him just now? Why is he trying to take him in now? To be honest, Lupin is really miserable now. He originally came to Nocturne Alley because he heard a rumor that the potion master Damocles invented a wolf poison potion that can keep werewolves awake when they are transformed into wolves. This is a blessing for all werewolves, but there is only one bad thing. The wolf poison potion is too expensive. Lupin spent all his money to buy a small portion in Nocturne Alley. After buying it, he can hardly afford to eat. Now Jason asked him to follow him, and Lupin subconsciously had only one question. Is food and accommodation provided? Then he realized that this would not work. The other party might be an evil wizard, so he chose a werewolf as his helper. If you don't want to, forget it. Jason didn't have the patience to listen to others rejecting him, so he took out Lupin's wand and shook it in front of him. "It's just this thing, you may not be able to get it." Lupin wanted to stick to his bottom line, but Jason really grasped people's hearts just right. First, he controlled Lupin's wand, and then gave him the help he needed most. The most important thing was that he didn't make any excessive demands. If Jason asked Lupin to do something bad now, the other party would definitely not agree. But he didn't mention it, and Lupin didn't even know what to refuse. "Don't worry, werewolf friend," Jason finally said, "I won't ask you to do anything against your principles. In fact, I just want to study your magic." "Study magic?" "Yes." Jason nodded. "I have an enemy who can cast magic, and I want to know how to break those spells. This request is not too much, right?" It doesn't sound too much. But why me? Lupin didn't understand. There were many wizards who were better than him. Of course I have a reason for looking for you. Jason's mouth showed a faint smile. I think unpopular people like us should form an alliance. After the voice fell, the dark wizard who had been watching the show was suddenly stunned, then pointed at himself and said, "Does it include me?" "No, I am quite popular." Time flies by. Since the last time Jason attacked Bruce, he seemed to have gone dormant and never showed his face again. I don't know if I chose to give up because I couldn't solve the magic, or if I was brewing some bigger plan. All in all, Bruce spent a relatively stable half a year, and there were not even other DC villains chasing him. Of course, it's also possible that they came but just didn't find their target. After all, not every villain knows that Batman's real name is Bruce Wayne. 11-year-old Bruce has entered the growth stage. His body is as long as a whip, and he is now a head taller than Hermione. On the morning of September 1st, Mrs. Granger repeatedly checked Hermione and Bruce's luggage to make sure nothing was missing before going out. The car drove all the way to King's Cross Station. "Remember, Hermione, you must take more care of your brother at school and don't let others bully him." Hearing her mother's instructions, Hermione couldn't help but glance at Bruce. Bruce Wayne was bullied. Such niche text, Hermione couldn't even imagine what it looked like. Tatum, who was standing on Bruce's shoulder, was a little dissatisfied. Why only protect Bruce? Doesn't a handsome owl need protection? "Shut up," Bruce said. Due to the existence of the contract, the communication between Bruce and Tatum can be completely telepathic and cannot be heard by anyone. And when Tatum speaks human language, only Bruce can understand it. This also means that when Tatum keeps saying weird things, only Bruce will be tortured. "Okay, it's time for you to set off." They were going to platform 9 3/4, and Hermione already knew how to get there when she received the admission notice. Bruce pushed the trolley behind Hermione, and together they passed through the wall between platform 9 and platform 10, and disappeared into King's Cross Station. Mrs. Granger finally couldn't help it and began to sob. Mr. Granger hugged his wife tightly and whispered comforting words. "It's okay, they'll be back for Christmas." A crimson steam locomotive parked next to the platform, and the wall it came from had turned into a wrought iron archway. The sign on the train read, "Hogwarts Express." Hermione and Bruce arrived early. After they boarded the train, they found the compartment easily. Bruce helped Hermione lift her luggage onto the luggage rack. The two sat facing each other, and the crowd outside the window gradually grew. A lot of noise could be heard, with different people talking. "Grandma, I lost the toad again." "Let's see it too, Lee, come on." "Oh, my God, could it be that you are the one?" However, these sounds did not reach Hermione's ears. She was thinking about her own thoughts. They all brought pets. Hermione looked at those people and was very unhappy. Mrs. Granger had used Hermione's too young as an excuse not to buy her an owl. But now that she saw that other little wizards had their own pets, Hermione felt like she was being cheated. Bruce comforted Hermione and said, "It's okay. If you need to deliver a letter, I can lend you Tatum. You are really good at showing kindness." Tatum's eyes widened. "Have you ever asked me for my opinion? Do I, the majestic king of demons, say I can just borrow it?" Bruce didn't answer. He held his face and looked out the window, pretending to be looking at the scenery. Hello. Suddenly, the door of the compartment was pushed open, and a timid voice came. Bruce turned his head and saw a boy with a round face standing outside the door with his head shrinking. He looked like he was about to cry and said, "Can I sit here? The other boxes are full of seniors." "Of course." Hermione patted the empty seat next to her. "You can sit here." The boy looked saved and clumsily dragged the luggage in. Hermione glared at Bruce, and Bruce could only get up and help the boy carry his luggage. Tatum said in Bruce's ear, "Tell him quickly, you are also a senior." Bruce ignored it. After the luggage was put away, the boy sat next to Bruce. His expression was worried, as if disaster was imminent. It was Hermione who took the initiative to say, "Hello, my name is Hermione, Hermione Granger, and this is my cousin Bruce Wayne." "What is your name? Why do you look so troubled?" Hello, my name is Neville Longbottom." Neville had a grimace on his face. "I lost the toad. It's my pet. Uncle Algie bought it for me. If I can't find it, he won't let me go." By the end, Neville was almost crying. Hermione quickly comforted. It's okay, we can help you find it. Right, Bruce. What Bruce could say, he could only nod. Sometimes, Bruce also wonders, why does the will of the world arrange a sister for himself when it arranges an identity for himself? Even if it wasn't true, it still seemed like there was some blood suppression. Bruce always felt short of breath in front of Hermione. The three children went to look for it separately, one by one in each box. Every time Bruce opens a compartment, his image will immediately attract the attention of everyone in the box. If there is a senior inside, he will have to be fed some snacks. Finally, he returned to the box with a pile of snacks. He was greeted by Ketum's ridicule. Did you go to beg for alms? You didn't find the toad, but you did have lunch. Hermione and Neville returned empty-handed, but Neville was in a much better mood, perhaps because he had let it go. We just saw Harry Potter. As soon as Hermione sat down, she began to share what she had just experienced. The boy who survived the catastrophe, the one who entered the history books alive, he was mentioned in Modern History of Magic, The Rise and Fall of Dark Magic, and Important Magical Events in the 20th Century. She repeatedly reminded Bruce of the other party's identity for what she was going to say next. Hermione had just demonstrated a good magic in front of Harry and his friends, which made her very excited and she couldn't wait to share it. Sure enough, as long as Bruce was not around, she was no worse than others. Harry Potter. Ketum suddenly sneered, humph, another orphan. At this moment, Bruce clenched his fists and wanted to kill Ketum. Do you have to talk about orphans every day? He glared at Ketum, wondering if there was a spell that could shut a person up forever. This time, Ketum didn't seem to feel Bruce's anger at all. What are you looking at? Are you scared by Harry Potter's fame? Ketum patted Bruce on the shoulder and comforted him from the bottom of his heart. It's okay, be confident, you are also the boy who survived a disaster. It was already dark. The train slowed down amid mountains and woods under a deep purple sky. Hogwarts is almost here. Neville was no longer as embarrassed as before. Perhaps it was Hermione's experience of taking him all the way knocking on doors that made him trust this girl. He began to join in Hermione's conversation with Bruce. At this time, Hermione was still talking about Harry Potter, which was recorded in the book, but the topic had turned to the mysterious man. Both Bruce and Hermione came from the Muggle world and had little respect for Voldemort, and they always called him by his first name. Neville's expression suddenly changed. You can't say that name. Bruce and Hermione turned around in confusion, only to see that Neville's face was already red from holding back, and the flesh on his round face was trembling. My grandma said that that name has magic power and you can't call it by its first name. Neville's voice was trembling, and he looked like he was about to cry. Ketum's teasing voice rang in Bruce's ears. Poor kid, he's scared. Just a name has such a powerful deterrent. Bruce asked Ketum in confusion. Why is this happening? Is this some advanced spell? Spell, it's not that simple, Ketum said. This is the power of fear. The fear that comes from the heart of people, even if it is just a name, they dare not mention it. The power of fear. Bruce was thoughtful when he heard this concept for the first time. How did he do it? I mean Voldemort. Bruce was really curious as to how a name could be so intimidating. If he can do this, the chaos in Gotham will surely be contained. From this moment on, Bruce's interest in Voldemort began to grow crazily. You need to understand this yourself. Ketum did not answer directly. The situation in each world is different. You have to find a path of fear that suits Gotham. Bruce has to figure out who he wants to be. He wants to be the Dark Knight of Gotham, not the Dark Lord of the Wizarding World. Suddenly, while Hermione was still comforting Neville, a voice echoed on the train. The train will arrive at Hogwarts in 5 minutes. Please leave your luggage on the train and we will take you to school. Hogwarts has arrived. The train slowed down and finally stopped. The students were pushing and shoving, and they rushed to the car door and got down to a dark and small platform. Bruce had already changed into his uniform and followed Hermione and the others out of the car. A lamp swayed above the students' heads, and a rough voice came. First years, come over here. Harry, come over here, how are you? He was a burly man, his face almost completely hidden by long unkempt hair and a thick, tangled beard. He was greeting a little boy in the crowd. and there was a commotion in the crowd, obviously recognizing that boy as the legendary Harry Potter. It was also the first time for Bruce to meet the youngest person in the history books. At the first glance, Bruce felt the same temperament as his own in him. In Catum's words, this is called sympathy for orphans. Hey, wait, Bruce suddenly realized, when did he get used to Catum's hell jokes? Even when the other party didn't say anything, he took the initiative to imagine what Catum would say. It's crazy. Bruce shook his head, pushing these ridiculous thoughts away. Come on, follow me. Are there any freshmen? Watch where you step. Okay. Freshmen, follow me. Hagrid shook the lantern in his hand and led the students towards Hogwarts. It was dark on both sides of the path, and the surroundings were quiet except for Neville's occasional sniff. As you turn this corner, you will soon see Hogwarts for the first time. A black lake suddenly opened up at the end of the narrow path. On the high hillside on the other side of the lake stands a majestic castle with towering spires and windows twinkling under the stars. No more than 4 people per boat, Hagrid shouted, pointing to a group of small boats moored on the shore. Bruce, Hermione and Neville got on the same boat, and the boat started automatically, taking a group of young wizards towards Hogwarts Castle. No one spoke, everyone looked at the majestic castle and thought about different things. Only Catum, the owl, showed no interest. He jumped to the side of the boat, stretched his wings into the water, and let the moving boat create a series of ripples. Just when everything was completely silent, a huge black shadow suddenly swam past under the boat, and the entire fleet was shrouded in this shadow. A little wizard discovered this first and screamed, "What is this?" The sharp voice immediately attracted everyone's attention, and the fleet suddenly fell into a commotion. Hagrid laughed loudly and said, "Oh ho ho, don't panic, this is a giant squid. It is very docile and will not hurt you. It will even save you if someone falls into the water." After hearing these words, the little wizards finally settled down, and each of them looked at the shadows below with curious eyes. Is this too big? Bruce also watched the giant squid with interest, and then Catum suddenly jumped onto his shoulder and wiped the water stains on his wings with Bruce's hair. There is a rumor about the giant squid. Do you want to hear it? If I say I don't want to, you won't tell me. Bruce didn't answer, and Catum really started talking. According to unofficial records, the identity of the giant squid is actually unusual. Someone once said that Godric Gryffindor, one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts, is still alive. He is the giant squid in the Great Lake. He is the largest animagus in the magic world and may also be the oldest. Every night at 11 o'clock, the giant squid will turn back to its original appearance of Gryffindor and walk in the school grounds until the sun rises the next day. This unofficial history is really wild. Anyway, Bruce has read so many books about the magic world, and none of them mention this. Who did you hear it from? Bruce asked. J.K. Rowling, Catum replied. Who? Bruce frowned. How come he had never heard of this name? Is he from the magic world? But Catum obviously didn't want to delve into this issue. He just looked at the shadow in the lake thoughtfully as it slowly went away. If this rumor is true, it means that there is a more advanced transfiguration in this world. Catum said to Bruce, the giant squid is not an animal, but a magical creature. Ordinary animagus can only turn into animals, but this transfiguration can turn into a magical creature, even a mythical creature. After speaking, he patted Bruce's head again. Don't worry, little Wayne, if such a transfiguration really exists, I will definitely let you learn it. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.